Time for overtime. Mark Grandy, Kyle Madsen, and Sterling Bennett with analysis, sound from the locker room, and your reaction to the game. When the clock hits 0, we bring you overtime. Take it away.
That's embarrassing. Get this team out of my face. I want nothing to do with the 2024 San Francisco 49ers anymore. This is trash. This was supposed to be a team that was supposed to be a Super Bowl contender. Matt Barrows, who's covered the team since 1937, goes, this is the most talented 49ers team I've seen in my life. You're talking to Fred Warner before the season and like, oh yeah, no, Super Bowl hangover's not real, blah, blah, blah. Okay, then that means you stink. That's what all that means. We have sat here on overtime and we have wondered, what's wrong with this team? Is this a good team? Why can't they do this? So a special teams mistake here, a special teams mistake. No, today they were just bad. And 11 weeks in, fellas, I think that's what we've got. Mark Grandy, Sterling Bennett, I'm Kyle Madsen. 888-957-9570. Would love to hear from you on whatever the hell that was at Levi Stadium. Go ahead, Mark.
That was rough. And it's kind of a perfect encapsulation of the Niners' entire season, right? Like, they don't play great at any one point, but you feel like they have the game under control, and, you know, you can go back and you can point to, like, 8 different plays throughout the course of the game and say, well, you didn't turn that into a touchdown. If you did, you probably win. Well, you weren't able to grab that interception. Well, you got sacked. You didn't... So many little things here and there that over the course of 60 minutes of football add up, and the result is you just allowed a lesser opponent, a team that is not nearly as talented as you just allowed them to hang around. And what happens when you allow teams to hang around? They find ways to beat you at the end when they had no business beating you. And the story of the Niners season is maybe these teams do have business beating the 49ers because it's happened time and time and time again. I mean, it should have happened last week too, and the Niners ultimately won that football game. This is just who the 49ers are this year. For whatever reason, it doesn't make it any less maddening, any less frustrating. It's happened over and over and over again, and at a certain point, we're just going to have to accept that this is who they are, and deal with the fact that this team isn't going to live up to the insane talent that they have, because this is just who they are, and they've been consistently this team all season now.
Can we be honest? This team is not good. There's no second half run coming. The quarterback throws a pick in a pivotal moment. The offense can't move the football inside Seattle's 35 twice. They get a field goal off an interception. They don't get in the red zone until late in the fourth quarter to get you back the lead when you should have had it multiple times throughout the entirety of the game. The defense, to me, played great. Played great all game long outside of 2 drives. And this has been the story all year long. When the offense gets healthy, when they figure things out, folks, this is who they are. They ain't figuring stuff out. What's there to figure out? You can't score in the red zone? They did twice today. You still lost. They got beat by a bad team. Not an average team. A bad Seattle Seahawks team. Geno had thrown 6 picks in his last 4 games. An offense that just can't run the football. You let them stay around, hang around. This is a complete disaster from top to bottom. You want to talk about trade deadline acquisitions they didn't make? Fine. Go get a run stuffer. Go get somebody else. Where was Deebo Samuel today? He didn't do anything.
It's a great
question.
No
George Kittle. Where was Deebo? Where was Pearsall? Where was Jordan Mason? The one time they get into the red zone early, Jordan Mason gets you in there, and you don't use him at all the rest of the football game.
Insane.
Like, there are so many questions from Kyle Shanahan. The defense is fine. To me, this entire game's on the offense. The entire game. Yep. Defense got you a takeaway. The offense put up nothing. They had 10 points through the majority of this football game against a Seahawks defense that they ran 229 yards against 4 weeks ago? With a better running back today than they had 4 weeks ago? What's the excuse? There's not one. It's a bad football team playing bad football in the most clutch time they have to be good. You have the Packers next week? Oh, that'll be a loss. You got the Bills? They're going to get annihilated in 2 weeks. I have little faith in this team that sucks, considering the fan base, ourselves, are supposed to be faithful. They have to give me something to believe in, and there's been nothing there all year long.
Yeah, man. You bring up Deebo Samuel, and we'll just start there. You ask where he is. Here's the rat on the table, if I may. Deebo's washed, bro.
He's podcasting.
He's just look, how many end arounds has he gotten this year that just he has no juice, where he just runs horizontal to the sideline?
It's like he gets a yard or loses a yard.
And there's just nothing. The screens that used to be explosives, not there for him anymore. That 2nd and 11 play action throw to Deebo, that's who Jauan Jennings is cooking. And you have 2nd and 11, game potentially on the line here.
Jauan was so good.
He was awesome. And you don't throw.
Second time they've wasted him.
You throw
Second time.
You throw it to Deebo Samuel, who can't separate from me right now. Like, this is that is the route on the table with Deebo Samuel and Sterling. I bring it up because you ask, where's Deebo? It's like, he's just not it. He's not that dude anymore. He's not that player that they can go, hey, need an offensive spark, get it to 19. He's going to go make a play. Like, nope, he's just not making plays. They're giving him the ball. He's just not doing anything with it. 1 carry for -1 yard today. He had 5 catches for 26 yards on 8 targets with a long play of 11.
That's bad. Like, this Niner team, and I think, and we all agree, like this team has an incredible amount of talent, and that's why the 5-5 record and all these close losses is so frustrating, because you're not playing like a team that has all this talent. But I think the reality for this Niner team, whatever the reason, and the reason, obviously, it's important to figure out what it is so you can try to fix it. But for my purposes, the reason doesn't even matter. The reality about this Niners roster and this Niners team is They may be pretty talented, but they are incredibly top heavy. And if you have an absence, one absence here, one absence there, they're cooked. Like George Kittle out today, and even though Jauan Jennings was awesome, the offense can't do anything. I mean, you score 17 points against the Seahawks defense that is not good. The Fox broadcast all day was talking about whoever scores 30 is the team that's going to win this game. Niners get 17, and it didn't even feel like maybe they deserved all 17 of those points. They had 3 of them off of a turnover that the defense gave them near the red zone, and they didn't turn that into a touchdown. But the reality, guys, is you don't have Kittle for a game. It's going to be rough going offensively. Defensively, you lose Bosa for the majority of the fourth quarter, and then that's when the defense suddenly can't get us up. Like, if you miss one guy on either side of the football, this team is done. Like, you need everybody fully healthy. To your point, Kyle, and this is the point you were making as well, Sterling, Deebo Samuel, without Kittle today, this is the game in the past when he shines, when he has like 150 all-purpose yards and 2 touchdowns. And now he can't even get past the line of scrimmage. Like, this team is so top-heavy, and without Kittle on one side, in the fourth quarter, without Bosa on the other side, they are just nowhere near the level that they have been in the past with those players, or even when those players would miss games in the past. There was enough elsewhere to figure things out. Not anymore. Not anymore. I don't know exactly what the reason is. Is it just these guys are getting older? Is it just that Deebo Samuel isn't the player that he once was? Is there something schematic? Is it the Super Bowl hangover? I don't know. But the reality is, we can talk about just how talented this roster is. And sure, they've got whatever, like 8 guys in the NFL top 100 that the players vote on in the offseason. Okay, congratulations. You ain't playing like it. And the reality is, they're simply not that talented, because if this is how that talent is playing, then newsflash, the talent isn't very good anymore.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sterling. Were you going to say something? Sorry. It sounded like you were Go ahead. You go.
The people that are responsible of fixing things with the San Francisco 49ers aren't doing it. Whether it's Kyle Shanahan, whether it's Deebo Samuel, whether it's Jake Moody, the people that are paid big money to execute aren't doing it. The coaching is failing this team, and when the coaching does their job, the players are failing the team as well. It is a collage of just hot mess. They're a team that you're hoping and praying, okay, maybe this is the game. Maybe this is the game. Okay, they needed that win against the Bucs last week. Tough fought win. Tabor Pepper and Deebo Samuel on the sideline. I needed Tabor Pepper to go out there and touch Deebo Samuel. Be like, wake up, dude. Wake up. Like, I don't need to, you came into the offseason, I'm in the best shape ever. I never want to put that tape or the thumb on tape I did last year ever again. I want to be better this year. They redo your contract. They reward you because all the hard work you put in training camp. It feels like all the good reps you left out there in July.
Yep.
What has he done all year long outside of week number 1 against the Jets, where he stole Jordan Mason's touchdown? It's been nothing from your all-pro wide receiver. And when Ayuk's not going to play all year because of injury and Kittle's not going to play in this game, you need to rely on your stars. This is an offense that cannot and honestly should not at this point rely on their stars. I'd rather see Cowling, who got hurt, and Pearsall play and Mason play. Like, these guys that you expect to be your heavy hitters, your go-getters, a guy that leads you. And when you're going through off spurts and you're cold, pick you up. They're the ones that are failing as well.
Yep.
That's the issue. The guys you rely on and have relied on for years and years and years in this run to pick you up, they're the ones that are dropping the ball. That's the problem.
And the fact that there's not been an adjustment to this so far, because it feels like we've been talking about this all year. If Kyle Shanahan is the coach that I think a lot of people think he is, how are they not figuring this out? How is this still an issue? Like, you should be able to build something better than whatever the hell that was offensively today. Jauan Jennings gets 10 catches. McCaffrey gets 4. Samuel gets 4. Juszczyk gets 2. 1 for Eric Saubert and nothing for Ricky Pearsall on 2 targets. How are they not figuring this out? Is this an offensive line problem?
They weren't very good today.
They were terrible. Is this a weapons problem? Is this a quarterback problem? Because I'm with you guys. The defense down the stretch came up a little short, but they got a stop. 3rd and 1, and then 4th and inches. They got the stop. They did their job.
Yep.
You can't run out 4 minutes? 4 minutes and you get the ball at midfield? You can't go get me some points? That's
just a field goal. All you need is a field goal.
A field goal there.
All you need is a couple first downs and you kill the whole clock.
And that's what, and I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. 888-957-9570 is the phone number. Typically when people call in, I'll stand in front of the 49ers a little bit.
Sure.
I got nothing today. Let it rip, dudes. I have nothing for the 49ers today. That 2nd and 11 play call on the 49ers' last offensive, or I guess their last real offensive drive after they got the 4th down stop. The 2nd and 11 play action, I don't even hate, but you have one receiver in the route and it's Deebo, and then you're not even going to deliver a good throw to him, and you're going to save the Seahawks a timeout and put yourself in 3rd and 11?
Yep.
And
trust your non-Nick Bosa less defense to stop them.
Right, and then you have your punter, your new punter, who wasn't even in the league on, let's see, this time last week.
Shout out what? Pat O'Donnell?
Pat O'Donnell, that's his name. Don't forget it.
I will.
Already have.
Maybe not. Might need him.
But they don't have a punt returner back.
Yeah.
And this sounds trivial, but this is important. Just pooch it a little bit.
Let it roll.
Yeah.
Let it roll. Dude, kicking that into the end zone is inexcusable in that spot.
He gave absolutely zero hang time to allow his gunners to get down there. It was like a line drive punt that bounced at the 5, then easy into the end zone.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
That's just poor execution. I'm not going to put that on the level of, because, I mean, they still drove 80 yards to score. Like,
yeah.
These are just the little things that you just go, all right, man.
It's death by a million paper cuts. And it's the story of the Niners season. Yes. And it's special. It's simple special teams, missed opportunities, moments like that. The one thing you can't have, the Rams loss on the road week 3. You can't allow punt return here. They allow punt return. The one thing you can't have here is your punt goes into the end zone. Of course, there's so many other things that led up to that moment that could have made that punt inconsequential. And I get that. But they got no one back there. Just bounce it at the 20 and it'll roll down to the 10 or the 5, and then you down it there and they got to go 95 yards to beat you. And they still might have. Who knows? But it's this Niners team, and you and I and Sterling, we've all talked about this all season long here on Overtime. They play more like a team that is trying to break through into the postseason for the first time. Like, they play like a team that's full of rookies and youngsters. Yes. Yeah. And I mean, to be fair, they do play a lot of youngsters, but it's not the youngsters that are making all these terrible mistakes.
Right.
It is overall decision making. it is larger scale things, and then it's individuals like Nick Bosa last week against Baker Mayfield, like Fred Warner with a bad penalty on that final drive against Baker Mayfield. It is all of those guys that are just not playing like a group of dudes that have been to multiple Super Bowls, that have been to 3 consecutive NFC Championship games. Like, this is a team that is playing like a team that is on the up and up, that is trying to make their first postseason run, not one that's trying to extend their window. Like, they are playing like one of the least inexperienced teams in the league, yet consistently they have been the most experienced team in the NFL. Like, this is an ugly, ugly performance and an ugly, ugly season that as every week goes by, I kind of convince myself, well, now they're going to try to turn it around. Yeah. And I think I'm at a point of no return where I'm just accepted that this is just who they are.
I think you have to.
Their offense this year has scored under 23 points 5 times.
Ugh.
And that's with Brock Purdy, that's with Deebo Samuel, that's with a newly paid Ayuk for some of those games, George Kittle and company. This is an offense that can't put the ball in the end zone, and in this game could barely even get to the red zone. Against the Seahawks defense, that I don't care it's their second time playing them this year, whatever. I get they're off the bye week, whatnot, but the Seahawks team is not good. 24th ranked defense in football walking into today. They got 3 new linebackers. Oh, they're going to try some new stuff. Who cares? You're the freaking 49ers with this roster, this stacked team, guys highest paid at every single position, a quarterback that's probably going to be a $65 million a year quarterback, and you can't score more than 17 points? What is this? Brutal. You have a team that constantly is unprepared for clutch moments, whether it is punts, when just pooch it, go out of bounds. You had a punt earlier in this game that he boomed downfield at the 10-yard line out of bounds. Can't do that twice?
Yep.
At that point, you call your timeout. You want to get that right. You want to pin Seattle's offense down to the 5-yard line, make them march 95 yards against you? I'll take those odds over giving them free 15 yards, free 20 yards any day of the week. Your defense continues to make plays. Your defense continues to get takeaways. Your defense continues to put your offense in a position to score points over and over and over again every single game. Your defense won you that game last week because your offense couldn't put up more than 20 points. Your defense today had this game won for you, but your offense couldn't put up more than 17 points. This is an offensive issue. 1 or 2 drives, excuse the defense. This is a Shanahan. This is a Purdy. This is a CMC. This is a Deebo. This is an offensive team that is supposed to have so many weapons and put up 35 points, whatever it may be, and they can't even put up 20 in one of the worst divisions in football that has a bunch of mid teams out there.
1 and 3.
Just hanging around.
1 and 3 in division now.
Terrible.
And they now have no tiebreaker against Seattle anymore. Continue to put themselves behind. This is a bad football team. And I would not be shocked if they finish in last place in the division.
It's where they're at right now. 888-957-9570. Here's the thing that worries me the most, and I want to get to Dave in South San Francisco, and I see Gary in Castro Valley here as well. The thing that worries me here is all the things we just talked about are things I attribute to teams that are poorly coached. Like, if this is the Dallas Cowboys, if we had just watched a Dallas Cowboys New York Giants game on Sunday Night Football, I'd be like, wow, Mike McCarthy stinks. That's what this all comes down to. The penalties, especially on offense. How many pre-snap penalties have they had this year? Man. They're just the mistakes, the not knowing where to be, the not knowing situations. All of these things start to stack up in a game. Over the course of 11 weeks, where we have done each and every one of these shows, where even after they win, it sounds like this. Like that to me is a larger problem than just today.
Yeah, and I think like the conversation about coaching gets even more muddied when, like, it's one thing if this is like an aberration game and you have all these issues, but this is kind of like the first time you've seen them all year. This is the 10th game, but this is like the first time we've seen them, right? It's like, okay, they had a bad week. Yeah, maybe it's Shanahan's fault. Maybe it's, Sorensen's fault. Maybe it's Brian Schneider's fault, the special teams coordinator. Sure. Let's not pretend like this wasn't what happened week 2 in Minnesota, week 3 in LA against the Rams, like all of these other games and losses. The Cardinals lost earlier in the year. Like, this has happened over and over and over again. And even as you're talking about, Kyle, in wins, these things are still popping up like it did last week against Tampa. And over the course of now 10 games, 11 weeks of football, the exact same things, these silly things that plagued the Niners week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, is still plaguing them week 11. So whether or not there is no solution to these problems, the bottom line is the Niners haven't fixed the things that have been hurting them all season.
Yep.
And at a certain point, that's got to come down on the coaching staff. Like, there's just no other place to pin that to. It is what it is. They have not gotten better. They have not improved on the things that killed them early in the year. We're now in the back. Like, we're in the stretch run. Like, this is when you figure things out and you fix all those things. And they have not made an inch of progress in that regard.
We should have seen this coming the moment they came out of the bye week and played the way they did last week
that's a great point.
against the Buccaneers. Like, okay, you can self-scout. You want to make changes, make your changes. And they come out and they put out a stinker. I don't care Brock Purdy had 350 passing yards.
Yeah,
he was
gross.
bad in that first half. He wasn't great in this game. They had a couple of good drives offensively, put up some points, got you a lead late. Jauan Jennings mainly the reason for that on the offensive side of the football, but they had their chance to reset themselves. They already had their opportunity to go into the bye week, get healthy. Now they're already banged up again. Trent almost didn't play. Bosa played, then got hurt during the game. Kittle didn't play. Like, they're honestly, if I had to ask you guys, where's the hope? You hope every single week. Okay, now here it is. Okay, this week. It's this week. We're saying that every single game for 11 weeks. Okay, now now the corner's being turned. No, it's not. They're stuck in neutral, and they have been for 11 weeks.
Yep. I will not be bamboozled any further. I will not be hoodwinked. None of that. 888-957.
Run amok. Run astray.
Fool me once, fool me twice, fool me 3 times,
Fool me
4
11
times.
times.
5, I will not be fooled a 6th time, Niners.
We're here in week 11. Have been fooled again. Oh, man. 888-957-9570. Would love to hear from you. Dave in South San Francisco. Let it rip, buddy.
Yeah, how you doing today? I just watched the game and the hello? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Go ahead.
Watch the game. Those last couple offensive plays by Seattle, the quarterback made a big run. Does any coach seem to think on the next one he won't do the same thing? Then he runs in for the touchdown. Words come up like anemic, feeble, weak, where I've watched the Niners for 50 years, and it used to be strong, dominant, overpowering. And I'm just like very saddened because we should be able to do much more. And it has to be looking at the coaching staff at some point. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, that's the first place I'm looking right now. Like, we could definitely have a larger conversation about team building and whether they've done enough on their offensive line and the philosophy of, well, you want to draft playmakers instead of offensive linemen because you just need to kind of build a makeshift offensive line. But the playmaker, but okay, so instead of figuring out their offensive line here, where they're still starting Colton McKivitz, who's mid, and Jake Brendel, who's actively bad, they have drafted such playmakers as Trey Sermon, Ty Davis Price, Dan Gray, Jacob Cowing.
It's his business name.
Jacob Cowing. The list goes on. These playmakers who they're drafting instead of bolstering their offensive line aren't even on the freaking team. And the ones that are barely on the field. So that's one thing that I took away from today when I was trying, because as we're watching this, it's like, man, what is it? What is the issue? Like, what's going? Is it a Purdy problem? Is it a play calling thing? And I think what it came down to, guys, is and if you disagree, let me know. But I think that what it came down to for me was, man, they have too many offensive linemen that are losing their rep way too often.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems, but one of the big ones, no doubt, is the offensive line. McKivitz is McKivitz. We don't need to go much further than that. I mean, it's nothing against Colton McKivitz. He's just not a starting caliber right tackle in the NFL.
He cost them points today, though, on back-to-back plays.
Yeah, he did. Not great. Jake Brendel has had a pretty bad season as well. Aaron Banks, he's been okay this year. Today he was bad. How many holding penalties did Aaron Banks have today? He was not very good. Trent Williams is clearly hobbled. He still handled his business. I mean, Trent is as good as it gets at that spot. But how many times is Brock dropping back against a 4-man rush? Again, like the Seahawks did not blitz a lot today. 4-man rush, they were consistently dropping 7 back. They gave the Niners everything they wanted in the flat and shallow over the middle part of the field. They did not let anybody beat the Niners down the field. I'm not sure Brock aired it out like 20 yards down the field more than once or twice this entire game. And that's probably not necessarily on Brock or play calling. It's probably a credit to Seattle for what they were giving the Niners offense. But how many times was the only option the Niners had was either for Brock to run, which, okay, that's how they scored their first touchdown. Like he is effective at that, or a throw to the flat. And that was the offense like the entire day. Yep. And you're doing that on a 1st and 20 after a hold or a 1st and 15 after an illegal formation. Like there's just not enough explosive from the offense today, and a lot of that comes back down to the offensive line not being able to keep Purdy clean against a 4-man rush. Like the Niners' cheat code over the years defensively has been get pressure on the opposing quarterback while only rushing 4, because that means you can drop 7 guys back into coverage. Right. It's what the Seahawks did against the Niners all day today, and they kept everything in front of them, and it's why the Niners kind of consistently were able to move the ball, but weren't ever able to get into any rhythm where you're breaking off big chunk after big chunk after big chunk, and you only finish with 17 points. The Seahawks kind of took the Niners' defensive strategy and used it against them, and it worked really well.
Yeah, and
look at the box score.
Go ahead.
Right? Like Purdy, 5.7 yards per pass. It was like 9 last week.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey, longest run 11 yards. Jauan Jennings, longest play was 22 yards. They were playing 3 on 11 offensively tonight. 3 on 11. It was CMC, Purdy, and Jennings. Yep. You can't do that. And that's happened over and over again this year. That Rams game in week 3, whatever it was, that was a 2 versus 11 kind of game for San Francisco.
And it almost worked. That's how good Jauan was.
Yes, and it almost worked today because how good Jauan was. But when you need just one other person to step up, no one's doing it. I get it. They had Ronnie Bell for a couple plays against the Rams, and they've had their backups playing when they should be on special teams, and there's been logical reasons as to why they've struggled in certain times and places. But in this game, you got your stars out there. You got your boys minus George Kittle. Great. Do you actually need George Kittle to win games? You want him. He's a massive factor. He's an all-pro. He certainly helps you win games. He can be the reason why you win games. But if taking away one player on a team that's this stacked, this craters your chances to win this much, that's not good football. This team deserves to be in last place. They've earned last place. Seahawks came into today ready to play. Said, you know what? Our season's on the line. We have to win today. And San Francisco said, oh, there's always next week. After week 16, after a game like this, you're in last place again. Trent Williams said, we put ourselves against the wall. We've got to come out swinging. They have been swinging for 10 games in 11 weeks, and they cannot hit the TKO on anybody. Patriots, the Rams, the Seahawks, they have put nobody away all year long. It's taken like last-second drives to win games against a Buccaneers team. Didn't have Mike Evans, didn't have Chris Godwin, and Jake Moody misses 3 field goals. You have to trot him back out there to win that football game. And in this one, you're hoping and praying you can say, let's hope they can get Moody on the field one more time. That's not good football. This is a bad football team. Altogether a bad football team.
Yep. I think that's kind of what it comes down to. We've been sitting here venting. Mark Grandy there, Sterling Bennett here. I'm Kyle Madsen. Gary is in Castro Valley. Gary, it says here that you want to vent. Welcome to Overtime. The floor is yours.
All right. My first pet peeve of today's game, and you guys, perfect segue into it. They were playing 3 on 11 because you know what? The guy wearing number 1, if he was on the Chiefs, he would be Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Deebo, you're going to get on Moody for missing those field goals and hold him accountable. Who's holding you accountable for your garbage yards and your garbage production? You had 5 catches, 2 of which didn't even mean a damn thing in the overall scheme of things in this game. I am so sick and tired of Niner fans thinking he is the second coming of T.O. or Jerry. He is trash. I'm glad we got Pearsall. I just want to say something, guys. I know you mentioned that this is a poorly coached team. I'm not going to blame the coaches anymore. I'm not going to give those excuses to those players because you know what? Ronnie was a field general. Patrick was a field general. Fred, I need you to be a field general and put those boys in position to be able to, like the last caller said, predict that Geno's going to run and get a bunch of yards on the last 2 plays of the game. I mean, come on. I know that no one was even looking at Geno. The DC can only do so much, but Fred, you have eyes on the field. You make that call on the line of scrimmage. Guys, what's been taking the Niners isn't their opponents. It isn't the schemes that the opponents throw at them. It's not even their productivity. They need to do a gut check every week as far as heart. They don't have it. They don't show it. They only brag when they can beat lesser teams. But when it's a team that can challenge, they wither. And I am so disappointed in seeing guys that should be champions just resting on their laurels and their clout. You have to earn the right to play this game. And you guys and these Niners right now, they're taking it for granted that they're playing it. And I'm so sick and tired. These players, you guys want to hold Moody accountable, hold yourselves all accountable for the fiasco this season has been, man. And that's all I got, guys. Don't blame Shanny. Don't blame none of the coaches. It all falls on those 22 starters. That's all I got.
Thanks for the call. I'm going to blame Shanahan and the coaches a little bit.
Yep.
Because this is not, if this was one game, I would totally agree with, what was that, Gary?
Yeah.
I would totally agree with them. If this was one game, like if they were 7 what were they going into today? 6-5-4? If they were 7-2 going into today and played this exact game, like, okay, they made some mistakes. This player wasn't good. That player wasn't good. But the fact that every week there's a player lining up in the wrong place, there's a penalty on this play that sets them back, there's this weird play call, there's this lack of execution on defense. Like at some point, like you have to start looking at the coaching staff. And that's why, like, I'm sorry, I can't get on board with Fred Warner needs to tell everybody that Geno Smith's going to run. Like, no, that's the coverage they're in, and they left the quarterback alone. It's a thing that happens sometimes. But to me, there was a general lack of preparedness today that has been there all season. Yeah. And I mean, even the last play, I didn't even notice this. The last play of the game featured an offensive pass interference penalty on Eric Saubert. So it's like, of course, why not? It was 9 penalties for 54 yards, and it felt like every single one of them was just a backbreaker.
Also, can somebody help me out? So the Niners get the ball after the Geno Smith go-ahead touchdown. Niners get the ball with, 11 seconds left, right? Mm-hmm. Like at the 20 or 30 or whatever it was. You got 2 plays essentially, and you got to go all the way down the field to score. Mm-hmm. And they try the trickeration on the first play.
Weird.
A throw 2 yards down the field to Deebo on a crosser, thinking that he can then get off like a hook and ladder or a lateral to the other side, and then you have a big gain. Like, why not just, you have a timeout, why not take what the Seahawks defense is giving, which is like 20 yards down the middle part of the field, and then you get in Hail Mary range. Like, obviously, there's so much else about this football game that cost the Niners, but why are you calling the trickeration play on the second to last play of the game? Like, when you don't need to do it just then. Like, there were so many moments like that confused me. I thought the first drive of the game, Niners get the ball to begin. 4th and 1, go for it. Go for it. You're going to gain 1 yard, Kyle. Get the first down and put points on the board to begin the game and get yourself going. Like, it's just moments like that where the Niners are doing the wrong thing. And over and over and over again, those little things, they add up. And ultimately, it's the difference in a win and a loss. And it's happened like 4 different times this year. Yep. They are not learning from what is hurting them. And I can't really make any sense of it.
Yep.
Well, even on their drive to get them their touchdown and make it 13 at that point, they had to get a 3rd and 11 twice. Like, this offense is pulling tooth and nail just to find first downs on 3rd and 11 to hopefully get a lead.
Yeah, man.
Like, this offense can't move the football. And am I wrong to think this, guys? I'm starting to believe that losing the Super Bowl a second time against the Chiefs broke this team.
Yeah. I think that's 1,000%.
To me, they're broken.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they thought, okay, they lost the first time. Okay, now we're back. It's the revenge tour, redo. Okay, now we can get him back and get our justice. And they lose in one of the worst possible fashions ever in overtime in the Super Bowl because you're not prepared and you have every chance to do so. This year, it's hard to get up for games in the middle of the season when, okay, like, this is worth nothing to me. Like, this team to me is broken. Their mentality is broken. Their spirit's broken. It may take a year off of not going to the playoffs to get themselves back. To go, okay, now Ayuk's back, and now we're fully healthy again. We don't have to play the extra month and a half of football. Oh, I'm feeling great. I'm fresh. But then at that point in time, Trent Williams is 37. Kittle's 32. Deebo's in his 30 if he's back at all. Ayuk may never be the same ever again after a massive contract he got. Like, I know it's tough to refind it again, right? You lose a massive game like that twice, your mentality's in the gutter, and it's hard to pull yourself back up. But Manti Te'o may have been right in the preseason. This team may be broken. Their mentality's done. It's over. Like, the window may not be shut, but this year it certainly is.
Yeah. It goes back to the Eagles last year. Remember, they were 10-1. Niners go in, beat the hell out of them in Philly, and then it was just downhill from there. They made the playoffs off the strength of their 10-1 start, but they were a first-round exit, and it wasn't pretty in that first round. And they bounced back this year, and they're fine. But I think the disappointing thing this year is just how quickly it got away from them. And the fact that there was never a point this year where we were like, yeah, hell yeah, the Niners are so back. It was just, they've just not been good.
Maybe you kind of felt that after week one?
Yeah, a little bit.
Maybe.
Yeah, but
that was when we thought the Jets were good.
Yeah, we thought the Jets were good. We thought McCaffrey was just going to miss 1 week.
Yeah.
But man,
since then, you're right. It's
really disappointing that they couldn't get up and play a better game here. This is overtime. Mark Grandy, Sterling Bennett, I'm Kyle Madsen. 888-957-9570. You can give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. That's also the Comcast business text line from the 415. It was an all-around team loss. Offense is terrible, like you all are saying, but the defense wasn't good. They got that 3rd and 4th and 1 stop, but how many times did they not get off the field on 3rd down? Last year's defense never allows that many 3rd down conversions. So the only issue I have with that is if you were going to say the 49ers offense was bad, the 49ers were better on 3rd downs than the Seahawks offense were, and they were the same yards per play. Like, they were just, so I thought the defense was fine, is the moral of this story. Not being able to get a stop without Nick Bosa is a larger issue that goes back to the preseason or the offseason when I thought they did a bad job of building a defensive line. But I thought for the most part their defense was fine today. This all, like, you have 20 points in the modern NFL with a quarterback that you're about to pay $60 million to, and Jauan Jennings who's playing great, and Christian McCaffrey who was an offensive player of the year, and Deebo Samuel who was an all-pro. You should be able to squeeze out 21 points.
Yeah. I mean, they gave you a turnover in scoring range.
Come on,
you weren't able to turn that into a touchdown. It was only a field goal. The defense also, in addition to giving you that score, they also stopped Seattle when Brock Purdy turned it over in the similar area. Immediately a scoring opportunity for the Seahawks, and the Seahawks go backwards. I think they lost 10 yards on that drive, and they have to kick a 57-yard field goal. Like, the defense almost erased the turnover entirely and almost turned it into no points for the Seahawks. Like, the defense, I thought, was phenomenal through 3.5 quarters. Then Bosa goes out, and then you have the issues, and that last drive was not pretty. I get it. Geno Smith running. First of all, Geno Smith is like very rarely runs the ball. Now, you gotta have a spy, and you gotta be aware of that. He can go in a situation like that, and to have it beat you twice on that last drive, that's tough. But you're without Bosa, and as you're right, like, not being able to get a stop without Bosa is an entirely different issue, and it is a real issue that this team has to consider, because Bosa might not play next week. Like we'll find out. He did not look good as he was limping off the field. Got a sack, immediately felt it after the sack, and then played, I think, one more snap, tried to get off the line, could not, and then walked off to the sideline, did not come in the rest of that game. That's an entirely separate issue. But through 3.5 quarters, I mean, I thought the defense was absolutely amazing. And this is no slouch Seattle offense, right? Like, I know they turned the ball over a lot. Geno Smith hasn't really been very good at protecting the ball this year, but you got Jackson Smith and Jigba, who decimated the Rams 2 weeks ago in their last game. You've got DK Metcalf. You've got Tyler Lockett. You got a pretty good duo of running backs and Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Like, this is a good offense. Offensive line, not great. I mean, their starting center, who has been bad this year, retired midweek. Like, they've got their issues. I know that. But the defense, I thought, was played more than good enough to win this football game. Even that last drive added into that. But yeah, I mean, it's on the offense. You got to score more than 17 points. You have to. There's no excuse for that. This is not a very good Seattle defense. You should be able to, even without Kittle, you should be able to put up like at least 24 points on this defense. Yeah. And they weren't able to do it. This is squarely on the offense. There's no doubt.
Real quick, I want to talk about after the interception. So they get the interception to start the second half. They run a couple of plays. They have a 1st and 10 at Seattle's 16-yard line.
Okay.
What happens next? Offensive holding on a scramble that would have gotten them down to the 8. You have a holding that makes it 1st and 20 at the 26. Then you get 14 yards from McCaffrey, another really good run. Oh, nope. Illegal formation. Now you have a 1st and 25 at Seattle's 31-yard line. That just can't happen. That can't be a thing that happens. And
same thing happened at the end of the first half too, right? They were in like scoring range, and then they went backwards like 3 straight plays and had to punt.
Yeah. I can get you the specifics on that. They had, oh, no, never mind. I can't. I don't have it right away. It's just ugly, man. Just all the way around.
Well, they've held opponents under 24 yards, 24 points 7 times this year. They're 4-3 in those games.
Yeah.
Like how? I mean, come on.
If I had told you guys before the game, come in there and I go, hey guys, I got a tip. The Seahawks are scoring 20 points today. We're getting ready to talk about a Niner win, right?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah. So at the end of the first half, Niners had 1st and 10 from the Seattle 34 at the 2-minute warning. Colton McKivitt's false start. Purdy sacked.
So now because of Colton McKivitz, mind you.
Yes. Yeah, that was McKivitz on consecutive plays, just pushing the Niners backwards. McKivitz just refused to block the edge rusher. Not sure why. Loss of 8 yards on the sack. So 1st and 10 from the 34. You're in field goal range, although missable field goal range. 1st and 10 from the 34 at the 2-minute warning. Penalty, sack. 2nd and 23 back from the 47. Incomplete to Ricky Pearsall, his first target of the game at that point, the final 2 minutes of the first half. Then incomplete to Deebo Samuel over the middle. 4th and 23. Only a couple of seconds came off the clock because you threw in completions and Seattle had timeouts. You punted away with a minute 48 left. Brutal. Seattle gets the ball back. They ultimately don't do anything with it, but the 49ers took points off the board themselves by going backwards. It happened there. It happened the first drive of the second half as well, Kyle. They cost themselves a number of points just by doing the silly, stupid mistakes we've been talking about now for 3 months.
Gross.
But that goes back to 3 times in this game. They were winning 7-6, 10-6, and 17-13 and couldn't get a field goal, couldn't get a touchdown. We're talking about a 1-score game with an offense this loaded that can't get one extra score, whether it be a field goal or a touchdown, on drives where they're inside the opponent's 35 twice. Mm-hmm. Like, the Niners we grew to know and love and believe in is not this team. They're not hitting explosive plays. They're not moving the ball downfield. It is a 3 against 11 on most games. Sometimes you get 4 against 11 if you're lucky. The offensive line's played better in previous games as well, but this is a team that used to be able to overcome the few mistakes they were making. Yep. And now it's a mistake-ridden team that can overcome anything.
Yep. 888-957-9570 is the number. We'd love to hear from you. We got Steven. He's down in Las Vegas. Steven, what do you got for us on overtime?
Yeah, I'm just tired of watching our offensive line. They're the ones I feel choking this game away, and Kittle not being there, like, honestly, he's probably our second best offensive lineman when you think about it, and how important he is to helping get that run game going. Yep. I mean, for a big part of the game, like, Brock Purdy was actually averaging more yards per run than CMC, and Purdy's having to run because this line can't give him half a second to even look down the field. Like, he snaps the ball to the ground, they're already in the safe. Like, this line is toilet paper.
Yep. Thanks for the call, Steven. Yeah, George Kittle being out hurts, for sure. But it can't be the end of your offense. It just can't.
It feels like it is.
What are we talking about here? So this is my problem with this. Brock Purdy is supposed to be the dude. He's supposed to be that guy. And pay him $65 million. He's going to be the highest paid quarterback in the National Football League. Fine. One player being out shouldn't be the end of Brock Purdy's effectiveness. Like that's the issue I have here. This is supposed to be the guy who is the rising tide that lifts all boats. He got it done with Jauan Jennings. Found Christian McCaffrey 4 times for 27 yards, and that's just it. No, there are no other plays to be made. We see Josh Allen do it with a makeshift receiving core. We see Patrick Mahomes do it with a makeshift receiving core. Today. Yeah. Josh Allen ran in on 4th and 2, ran in a touchdown to seal the game. Put the team on his shoulders and said, "I'm going to do this." And the problem isn't, and you might be screaming at the radio or screaming at your computer or phone if you're watching on YouTube, which salute, youtube.com/957thegame. Subscribe, hit the thumbs up if you're watching there. Appreciate you. I get that he's not in a tier with Mahomes and Allen, but he's going to get paid like it, and he needs to start playing like it, and he didn't today. And that's kind of the issue I have with the Kittle. I don't want to call it an excuse, but saying, "Oh, well, Kittle's their second best offensive lineman." Okay, huge problem if that's the case. Massive problem if that's the case. And secondly, if that just means your quarterback and your passing game are going to be done because you don't have this tight end on the field, then you have a way, way bigger problem than week 11, to me.
It's stuff like this that we criticize Dak Prescott for and Kirk Cousins for. Right?
Yes.
It is exactly what we say when that's the reason they're not the guy. That's the reason why you're reluctant to pay quarterbacks like this. And it's so frustrating because Brock last week, 350 passing yards, and I get it, there's mixed results in that, but last drive of the game for them, he marches him downfield, get the game-winning field goal, great. Clutch drive, perfect.
Even the drive before that, the touchdown drive to Kittle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even in this game, touchdown to Jauan Jennings early in the game, dives for the pylon, he got you 14 points. But it's not enough. In this day and age in football, when teams are putting up 24-plus consistently, your defense is doing their job, and you're in the year that you say, okay, go Brock Purdy, earn your bag, and you see games where you're like, wow, Brock looks amazing. Brock looks like the guy you want to pay, and you had 2 good playoffs run from him, and you're like, wow, okay, this guy's legit. He's the real deal. But there's games like this kind of scattered throughout his career thus far, mainly this season, where you're like, do I want to give you $65 million? This is a game where I'm hoping that you can be the guy that can, okay, put the team on your back and win us the football game. And at times he's done that, but recently this year it's like, I'm more reluctant today to pay Brock Purdy $65 million than I was 4 weeks ago. Yeah. And I hate that I feel that way.
He missed the biggest throw of the game. Flat out. That throw to Deebo was atrocious on the 2nd and 11. You have to make that throw. Bottom line. And he didn't.
Yeah, I think the way we view this Purdy conversation, and obviously we look at it through the prism of, are you willing to pay him X amount of dollars in 3 months from now when you can actually start talking about it. It's always interesting because theoretically, if you are on the precipice of signing a player to the richest contract in the history of the league, generally that's something you feel excited about, right? It's like, oh my God, that means we've got one of the greatest players ever.
Exactly.
And you kind of feel like whether or not you believe Brock is a really good quarterback or just an okay quarterback, if you think he's the driver of the bus or is the talent around him, it's Shanahan, whatever your feeling is, I think there is a very, very fair opinion to have, and that opinion is this. I don't know if this quarterback making $65 million is going to work with this offense. We see how this offense looked today without Kittle. Mm-hmm. Okay? How is it going to look 3 years from now when you don't have Kittle, presumably, or maybe he's someone who's nowhere near as good as he currently is? You don't have Deebo. You still have Ayuk, most likely, but maybe he's not as good as he was last year. Pearsall turns into something okay. McCaffrey's gone. Like, and obviously there will be other players that come in and probably develop and turn into good players. But it's going to be so much more difficult because when Purdy is making $65 million, guess what? You can't be paying Ayuk that. You can't be paying Deebo that. You can't be paying Kittle that. You can't be paying McCaffrey that. Or you're going to have to load up on offense and then have nothing on defense. Like, it's going to get 10 times harder when your quarterback is making more money than anybody else. And bottom line, if you don't feel excited about signing that guy to that contract, maybe it is something to consider whether or not it's actually good to build the team around it that way. It's a legit conversation, I think.
Yeah, and these are the conversations we're going to have moving forward because we're not talking Super Bowl with the 5-5 49ers. Sterling Bennett's there. Mark Grandy's here. I'm Kyle Madsen. Ali and Mason, I see you guys hanging out on the line. Stick around. We're going to get to you. 888-957-9570, and we'll sift through the wreckage of whatever the hell that was at Levi Stadium today on Overtime on 95.7 The Game.
in HD1 San Francisco on Odyssey Sports Station. Always live on the free Odyssey app, Twitch, and YouTube. Powered by First NorCal Credit Union.
Under 20. Smith back to throw. Smith takes off. Geno Smith, end zone ahead. Touchdown Seattle. With 12 seconds, Geno Smith again puts the Seahawks on his back. And Seattle's got the lead.
Now back to overtime with Grandy, Madsen, and Bennett, with sounds from the locker room and your calls at 888-957-9570. Overtime continues now.
Got a bunch of people that want to talk about this game. We'll get to all of you. I see you on the lines. 888-957-9570. Mark Grandy's here. Sterling Bennett's here. I'm Kyle Madsen. You know what the worst part about this is?
Oh, God.
And we'll dissect we'll continue to go over whatever that was. A 20-17 49ers loss at Levi Stadium. The worst part about it is, like, going into next week, by the time that game starts, I'm going to be like, well, you know, if they win this one.
We just got done saying, Kyle, they fooled me 5 times. I draw the line at 6.
I'm not saying it's right.
You told me they're going to go into Lambeau. They're going to go into Lambeau and beat the Packers after they laid an egg at home against the Seahawks, a team that they have recently just absolutely dominated every time they play.
The Bears almost got him today.
Yeah, and then
it's already started. It started.
And then they'll lose by like 3 points in Lambeau. You'd be like, well, I mean, they were close. They could go into Buffalo.
I'm talking myself into it by 8 p.m.
Jeez.
It's ridiculous. That's the worst part of this. Is they've shown us. Fred Warner said after the game, this is according to David Lombardi from the San Francisco Standard. Fred Warner said after the game about the 49ers blowing leads, quote, "That's not like us, but that's what we've been showing this year. So until we stop doing that, that's who we are," end quote.
That's not like us. It's like you this year.
Yeah. But also, I'm like, you know what, Fred? You're right. It's not like you guys. Like, dang. I kind of think they can still bounce back.
Kyle,
when they turn that corner.
Suppress it, Kyle.
I know, dude. It's just I wish there was something we could have taken out of this game, and I think this is why it sucks. I wish there was something we could have taken out of this game to be like, oh, if they hadn't made that mistake, if it was a blocked punt, it would be so much easier that swung the game. It'd be so much easier to go, man, they just clean up special teams, they'll be fine. But it's like, man, they had a turnover. They had issues offensively all game with penalties. They had a chance to salt the game away with like 4 minutes left and couldn't do that. They couldn't get 2 defensive stops they needed down the stretch. It was just like, oh, this was just a whole mess.
You want to know what I took out of this game? And this is a slight positive, but as always with this Niner team, you can't have something that's like 100% positive. Like there are some negatives mixed in here. Jauan Jennings might be like the biggest steal in the history of all steals. Like what they're paying him and what he is doing on the field, like absolutely incredible. And I say maybe it's not a full positive because it kind of like begs the question, like, well, then why the hell did you decide to pay 2 other wide receivers like top of the market money in Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk when you've got this dude who's better than both of them? And part of it, of course, is Ayuk's hurt right now. I get that. But even when Ayuk was playing, let's not pretend like he was lighting the world on fire like Jauan Jennings has been. Jauan Jennings is the team's best receiver, and other than George Kittle, might be the MVP of the offense so far this season. Like, he has been incredible. Like, he is your best wide receiver, and he is making by far the least of any of your starting wide receivers. He is amazing. So that's a positive, but the negative is it kind of throws a wrench into your whole team building strategy because you pay 2 other guys that play the same position as him.
Yeah, that's tough. $4.2 million is his cap hit next year.
That's pretty good.
It's a pretty good player. Sterling, any positives from this one?
No. It's a negative. I will say this, that it could have been a lot worse because Jordan Mason fumbles the kickoff and it goes out of bounds.
It
could have been worse.
Got
a break there.
Is that the 2024 San Francisco 49ers?
That actually turned
Could have been worse.
That actually turned into one of their better kickoff returns of the year because he just punched it all the way forward to the 27-yard line. It was actually decent field position.
Wow.
They should try that again. Just like
silver linings everywhere.
Muff the kickoff and just kind of shovel it forward towards the sideline. See how far you could get it.
Their special teams mistakes have gotten so bad that they've stopped costing them, and now they're actually helping them. It's looped around.
Oh, God.
What a mess.
I will say this, though. For as great as it is, and it has been, the one thing that you don't want, but San Francisco has had a lot this year, is they have 2 7th-rounders carrying this offense. And that's great. And we love that because we love Brock and we love Jauan Jennings. But you got to have your 5th-rounders step up, and your 7th-rounders can't carry your team. You got to have your 1st-rounders and your 2nd-rounders actually do their job. So for as great as it is to have young, cheap options at quarterback and receiver, they cannot be the lifeblood of your offense every single week. And I know one plays quarterback, so it's a little different there, but at some point in time, you got to have players that aren't 7th-round picks, including Mr. Irrelevant, actually push your offense over the edge, over the top.
I think also on top of that, Sterling, and you're spot on, it's also when you do hit on picks like that late in drafts, you're kind of on the clock to take advantage because once guys sign like a contract after their rookie deal, and Jauan's may be an exception because they just got him for relatively cheap this past offseason, but Purdy certainly is not an exception to this. Like once the guys sign their next contract, draft spot does not matter anymore. Like 7th-round pick, but now he's making $60 million a year. Like you are not taking advantage of the benefit you get by not winning a Super Bowl when those young studs that you hit on late in the draft are cheap. Like
Exactly.
That's where this hurts. Obviously, it's great to have all the good players that you could possibly have, but when you're 4, 5, 6 years removed from when you drafted them, they're being paid like they were 1st-round picks now. So ultimately, it doesn't even really matter once you get beyond the rookie contract to where they were drafted. And that's what makes this season, really it was last season, but what makes this season so frustrating as well is because you can feel yourself. You can feel yourself on the clock. We got to get this thing done. Yep. Otherwise, who knows what's going to look like in 2 years when we're paying the quarterback the most money of anyone in NFL history. What does that mean for the rest of the roster? It will have implications. It's not impacting the roster right now, and yet they're still 5-5.
888-957-9570 is the number. This is Overtime. Mark Randy, Sterling Bennett. I'm Kyle Madsen. Mason has been waiting patiently in Belmont. Mason, you're on Overtime with Grandy, Sterling, and Kyle. What's up?
Hey, guys. So I get to call in again and talk to you. Unfortunately, again, the same problem I've been talking about again. This team is not good at anything. And it's like, what's so bad about this, and I could be wrong, but to me, this felt like a team from the very start where guys were more concerned about themselves and whether or not this team was going to be any good. And I know and understand, hey, get your money. It's football. One hit, one injury can change your life and career. But to me, there are so many issues that are across the board that are so wrong with this team. And to me, I just could guess solely based upon the way I feel like this team prepares is that there just isn't any, there's just no there. There's no fire. Like these guys go out there and want to play and play hard for each other and win for each other. And when you do that in the NFL, any professional sport in the NFL, anyone's going to beat you. And it's like, you it's like, okay, now you invest all this time and money. Yes, there's holes in the roster, but there are enough guys out there who are getting paid to play like top line players, and they're not doing it. And it's embarrassing. So that's what makes it so bad. It's one thing to be a young team and be falling over your face, but a team with this many good players, yeah, despite guys missing, hey, we talk about George Kittle. We've been looking for a backup tight end who can play decently forever, and there isn't one. That's another issue. But this team is just cratering, and like any house with a cracked foundation, the cracks are there in the foundation, and they're just not good enough. They need a hope and a prayer just to make the playoffs if they're fortunate. They'll need outside help to even make the playoffs, and that's how bad it is.
Yep. Thanks for the call, Mason. Appreciate it. I don't disagree. I don't have anything to believe that there's not something just like existentially wrong with this version of the 49ers.
It's getting hard to deny that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got Fred Warner, you've got Nick Bosa, you've got George Kittle, you've got Christian McCaffrey now, you've got Deebo Samuel, you had Brandon Ayuk for a majority of the season, and even when that was all there, it was not working. Like there is like natural drop-off, I feel like, from some of these veteran players. Like the Niners are not a young team, which is also why you felt the pressure. There's got like kind of a twofold level of pressure on the Niners to get something done, as in win the Super Bowl soon because of the Purdy contract situation, but also because of the general age of your roster. Like you got a lot of veterans. And when you get older, generally, you don't play as well. Like your abilities fall off a little bit, but not a big enough decrease in ability over the course of one off season that accounts for how poorly this team is playing versus last year. Like that is not the only explanation here. There is something else internally going on. There's something else mentally going on. It's the physical and the mental difficulty of getting over another rough postseason loss. Like that has to be. That has to be part of it, a major part of it, because there's no way this team, simply talent-wise, ability-wise for individual players, is worse by the amount that they are that would explain the difference in wins and losses. Like there has to be something else involved here.
Well, and they're getting rookies playing great football.
True.
Gerardo Green, Malik Mustafa. At times, Isaac Grendo's played well in certain spots and times. They're getting undrafted free agents and Jordan Mason playing great football. And I don't know why he isn't getting the football more, even with CMC back in the game. I think there's a reason to believe that you can do it, two-headed monster back there, and they just refuse to do it unless you're like in the third drive of the game, which they score touchdowns on. But that window we've been talking about in the last 15 minutes or so, they drafted a quarterback to keep the window open, to pay all these people, to hopefully maximize that window. Now, the quarterback they thought it was going to be, it didn't end up being. Now they have Brock Purdy on a cheaper contract than that quarterback they thought was going to be the guy in Trey Lance. Okay, now you have a little more wiggle room to play with, okay? And that window is gone next year. The window that you moved off Jimmy for right reasons, and you got Trey, and okay, like the window that most teams capitalize on is gone in, 7 weeks. It's over with. This is, in a sense, the final year of the window for this team in its current iteration. And to see this team come out in the way it's currently constructed, with the 2024 draft class giving them a little more than you thought they were going to when the year began, it's so upsetting because you look at it and you go, that guy deserves a ring. That guy deserves a ring. Kittle, Deebo, Ayuk, Trent Williams, these guys deserve to have their names at the mountaintop. And unfortunately, some of these guys feel like they've arrived. Okay, we made it. We reached the mountaintop. You got there, and you got knocked down 10 more pegs, had to start all the way over. Some of me believes they left themselves in that game in February. That they get everything they had out there on the field. They tried, they were broken, they were bruised, they were banged up. They left a lot of who they were as a player in their prime on that field last year. And that's okay. Some guys' primes aren't very long. Deebo Samuel's prime, the way he plays, was never going to be 10 years.
Right.
It was going to be about 4 or 5 years, maybe 6, 7 if you're lucky. Deebo might be cooked. Might be over with.
Kind of looks like it.
Kittle's looked great this year. Awesome. Maybe next year it's Ayuk when he gets healthy. Pearsall, hopefully Cowling if he actually can play football and Shanahan actually plays him. And you can find a way to get better, but the window is over with. This is it.
Yep.
You have to capitalize on this year. And the fact is that they have not had the fight of, okay, we're 5-4. For whatever reason, they believe they can take their foot off the pedal. No, that's when you put your foot harder on the floor and say, we got to go even harder now. We have to go faster now. Or
do they just not have that in their bag anymore?
Maybe not.
Do they have their foot on the gas and this is kind of what they got? This is what they're working with. And it would be if we expand this out, this is not excuse making, this is just trying to find an explanation. You go to a Super Bowl in 2019 and lose. You have a year from hell in 2020 where everybody got hurt. 2021, you go to the NFC title game and lose in crushing fashion. 2022, you go to the NFC title game and lose because you lost your quarterbacks. All of them. Literally all of them.
Literally, yeah.
And then last year you lose a Super Bowl in overtime. That's a 5-year run in the NFL with largely the same group of players. Save for, Trent Williams obviously came in 2020. And there's been a couple of guys like Brandon Ayuk came in 21. So it's been a little bit, but for the most part, Juszczyk, Kittle, Deebo have all kind of been there and been through this. Like Warner on the other side, Bosa. It's like, if you ran into a wall, like it kind of makes sense. But at the same time, that wasn't the expectation this year.
I remember having the conversation during the offseason, maybe right when training camp was opening, about how I find it absolutely unbelievable how these guys are just able to pick up the pieces year after year after year and strap them back on again and say, all right, here we go, we're riding again. Like you were an inch away from reaching the mountaintop, and you came up just short. Again, as you just laid out, Kyle, 4 of the last 5 years, you are either in the Super Bowl, up in the fourth quarter with a great chance to win, or you lose on one step shy of making the Super Bowl in both games, heartbreaking fashion for entirely different reasons. I don't know how it's mentally and also physically, but mentally possible to just be able to wipe that all away and say, all right, we're starting from sea level again, and we got to climb Everest once again. Like, I don't know how that's possible physically and mentally. It makes absolutely no sense to me. And I felt that way a couple of off seasons ago. I felt that way last off season, but I never felt more strongly that way than this offseason. Yeah. But everything coming out of the Niners, and of course they're not going to say anything else, but everything coming out of the Niners was, we're ready to go. We're back to square one. We got to build up, and we're going to get back to the mountaintop once again. It is so physically and mentally draining to try to do what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Like, it makes sense. If we are seriously talking about a Super Bowl hangover, maybe it's not fair to just call it a Super Bowl hangover, but it's a hangover of the last 5 years that's like finally catching up to them. That's what this feels like to me. Like I haven't been able to shake that feeling all season long, and it feels like as much as they want to deny it, and as much as they want to say like, when our back's up against the wall, we're going to step up and we're going to become the team that we have been for the majority of the last 5 years. Your backs have been up against the wall for a while now, and it's not working. At some point, you're going to have to face reality, and it seems like reality is they might not be able to do it again after given everything that they went through. And maybe it's a down year. Okay, maybe they missed the playoffs, and they have an extended off season, and they're able to get healthy, and then that kind of rejuvenates them, and their energy and their fire is back. And maybe a year from now, they come back out, and they look more like the team of last year than the team of this year. Maybe that happens. And maybe we look at it as we look back at the 2022 Warriors title, when they had a couple of down years, and it kind of allowed them to reset, and you get that fire back, and things start going well, and then you realize, we're back to who we were. And then you just roll through the postseason, and you win. Maybe that's what happens a year from now. But right now, this looks like a team that is just mentally and physically worn down by the 5 years from hell that they've had, and endless deep postseason runs that haven't amounted to a Super Bowl. It feels like it's finally catching up to them.
Brutal, man. It's brutal. We've got Kyle Shanahan. We have his full post-game presser for you, but I'm going to put a pin in that because I'd rather hear from John in Santa Clara. He wants to talk about the Niners defense. John, you're on overtime with Mark Sterling and Kyle. What's up?
Mark Sterling. What's up, guys? I was at the game. I was row 1 right behind Geno Smith, giving him the business all game long. He even glared at me one time.
Nice,
so
dude.
Anyways, I did my part when I was there. The ones that didn't do their part was his defense. They made Geno Smith look like Patrick Mahomes on that final drive.
Okay.
And that is unacceptable. Geno Smith, this guy he's not Patrick Mahomes. He is an average quarterback. And I saw number 56, Floyd, just give up on one of those runs where he just let Geno Smith run around. They need to overhaul on this defense, and I'm a first responder. I got off work at 7 in the morning, took a nap, went to the game. Now I got to go back to work, and I can't do it anymore. I can't do that again. It's not worth it. All right, guys, this defense needs to overhaul. Shanahan's become too predictable. He needs a new offensive play caller, and I think it's pretty obvious. All right, guys.
John, salute to you for being a first responder. We appreciate you immensely.
Stay strong, my guy.
And thank you for tapping in with the program. That's a tough day.
That is a tough day.
Shout out to John, man.
Work the overnight, take a quick nap, go to the game, watch a terrible game, and then have to go right back to work. I disagree about the defense, and oddly, I disagree about Floyd. I thought this was his best game as a Niner. I
did too.
It's a relatively low bar because he hasn't been very good this year, right? And I'll have to go back and watch the tape of the last drive. I don't remember exactly what play he's talking about on one of the Geno runs. Which one was it? The first one or the second one where he said he watched Floyd kind of give up on the play. I thought Floyd was good today. When Bosa went out, it was Floyd. It was the one guy who was semi-consistently getting pressure on Geno Smith. G made a couple of really nice throws. There was one where Floyd was bearing down on him. It was the Jackson Smith and Jigba. Was he in or was he out on the right sideline? Where Floyd was the one that got right in Smith's face. Smith made a nice throw, backpedaling. Really Jackson Smith and Jigba, maybe he was out of bounds. I don't know. It looked like it was barely into my eye, but I might be wrong. I thought Floyd was all right today. His best game as a Niner. But there are other issues that need to be addressed, and they haven't been able to get consistent pressure on any quarterback all season long. Mm-hmm. And that's with Nick Bosa, without Nick Bosa. I don't think I'm pointing the finger at Floyd, though, for what happened today.
Sterling?
I just have a hard time pointing fingers at a defense that holds an opponent to 20 points.
Yeah, man.
Like, yes, there are some things they can improve upon. Grandy said pass rush. I agree. They don't have Dre Greenlaw. That stinks. But I thought Devondre Campbell's played his best 3-game stretch of the season the last couple games.
They've quietly been actually kind of decent.
Saying much,
yeah.
But he's been better. You're getting a lot from your young defensive backs in Brown and Mustafa and Green. And I know Yaden got picked on a little bit today, but overall, it wasn't like an eyesore. It was okay.
Yetur Gross-Matos returned, and he was okay.
Got a sack today. Like, there was a lot. Like, if you're looking for silver linings, it actually is the defense. Okay, they didn't play too bad. Okay, this guy played okay. This guy played better. This, that, and the other. I just have a hard time pointing to a defense that's actually doing their job and limiting opposing offenses to 20 points a game. Yeah. They did it against the Bucs. Done it 7 times this year. Yeah. 23 and under 7 times. This team is 4-3 in those games. Yeah. The fingers all year we were looking for, what's the exact problem and whatnot. And there's been a lot of them this year on every level of the offense, defense, and special teams. But more importantly, this offense has not looked the same all year long.
Yep.
It's been stuck in the mud. There's been injuries, sure. You lose Ayuk, didn't have Deebo and Kittle for a few games here or there and whatnot. But you're getting more from Jauan Jennings. Pearsall had played pretty good against the Cowboys and the Buccaneers and was a non-factor today. Nothing from Deebo. The offensive line had arguably their worst game of the season in this one, maybe outside of the Chiefs game. But it's an overall, like we talked about earlier, it's being prepared. Like, there's a reason why Mike Tomlin's teams never have a losing season. They're ready to go. They're prepared.
They did score a touchdown today, and they won.
Exactly.
Against the Ravens.
Usable kicker and a good defense, and they're prepared for what's coming.
They're 8-2.
We talked about the window of how do you go to the Super Bowl over and over again and have these deep playoff runs. You know who does that? Kansas City. Mm-hmm. And they have lost 1 game this year. Do you want to know why? Yeah, there's roster turnover here and there, but that's the same core for the most part. It's Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, similar running backs. The receivers have changed over, but the offensive line's relatively the same. It's because they have 2 of the best coaches in all football at the helm. Spags and Reed, they're prepared, ready to go, and well coached at the top. San Francisco's not. They're sloppy. They have penalties left and right, 9 for 54 today, many of those costing them points. Like, this is I don't want to call it a botch job, but overall, when you're 5-5, it's kind of a botch job.
Yeah, when you're 5-5 and you've expected to be in the Super Bowl, it certainly feels that way. We've had a lot to say about Kyle Shanahan. Let's hear what Kyle Shanahan had to say after the game. We'll hear from the 49ers head coach next on Overtime with Mark, Randy, Sterling, Bennett. I'm Kyle Madsen. This is 95.7 The Game.
Ooh, we got a question. Brian W. asks, it's the holiday season and I'm looking for
Right on the edge of Jake Moody's field goal range. On this third down, Purdy giving time. A perfect throw, and it's Jauan Jennings continuing his big day. Probably his biggest catch yet, converting 3rd and long. All right, so it's 3rd and long again. This has been where Jauan Jennings has lived today.
They got nobody here at the top of the screen.
Looking in his direction, Jennings again fighting for the sticks, breaking tackles, and getting a first down. What fight from Jauan Jennings. Bunch of the formation at the top on 2nd and goal. Fake to McCaffrey. Bootleg Purdy. Wide open, guess who? Jauan Jennings. It had to be Jennings to finish this drive.
Now back to overtime with Grandy, Madsen, and Bennett with sounds from the locker room and your calls at 888-957-9570. Overtime continues now.
Shout out to Joe Davis and Fox Sports for that audio. Yeah, part of a 4-catch, 42-yard, 1 touchdown drive for Jauan Jennings. So I want to do some math here, fellas, and help me out because me trying to do math on the fly never goes well. So it's a 14-play, 70-yard drive. Yeah, that's right.
Let me double check for you. Yes, it was
14 and 70
over 9 minutes.
He had 4 catches for 42 yards. So that means they had 28 other yards on their 10 other plays.
Yes, that's correct.
If you need an illustration of how dominant Jauan Jennings was in relation to the rest of the 49ers offense today, they had, if you took out, let me see, they had 277 yards of total offense and he had 91 of them. Yikes, dudes. Jauan Jennings was great. Everything else was
sucked.
Suboptimal.
So
bad.
when the Niners were targeting Jennings 11 times, he targeted him 11 times, that turned into 91 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that? 91 divided by 11. That's almost a little over 8 yards per play when targeting Jauan Jennings.
Mm-hmm.
Total yards,
277.
minus Jauan's 91, 186.
Yep.
Over how many offensive plays?
46.
46. That is 4 yards per play when not targeting Jauan Jennings. So a little more than 8 when targeting Jauan, 4 when not targeting Jauan. That's a problem.
Yay. Don't love that. Don't love that at all. We've had a lot to say about Kyle Shanahan today. I think it's only fair that we now hear Kyle Shanahan's side. He spoke with reporters after the game as he is mandated to do by the league, and here's what it sounded like.
What transpired? Just extremely disappointed. I thought we had a chance to put him away a number of times throughout the game. I thought the penalties we had on a number of drives just killed us. I thought we had some good momentum and then had a penalty that kind of ended the drive on 2 big drives that cost us points on both of them. Still should have put it away there on that last drive and had every opportunity to and missed a couple opportunities to do that. And when we did that, we gave them a chance and thought our defense played great all game until that last drive. But let them hang around, and when you let people hang around, that's what happens.
Offensive possession before the very last one there. You had a 4th and 6, I think, and then they called timeout, and then it seemed like there was another stoppage of some sort. We didn't get an explanation. What happened there?
Yeah, I thought they called 2 timeouts in a row, so I thought there was a penalty. They said that they didn't on the second one. So.
Our defense playing well, but when Geno Smith gets those 2 big runs at the end, is that a breakdown, or is that just him making great plays?
No, it's not a breakdown. It's just getting through the D-line. Everyone was in coverage. One was versus zone, the first one. The next one, I believe, was versus man. No one was open in the rhythm of the play, and you got to keep him in the pocket, and he broke through there, and especially on the touchdown run, guys in man coverage had their backs to him, and can't let him out of the pocket there.
This issue was the same thing he was dealing with all week, and it just went?
No, I think it was a different one. Yep.
The team has talked about, you've talked about second half surges being better in the second half. Hasn't quite happened yet. How disappointing is that? How can you put your finger on why it's not happening?
Yeah, it didn't happen because what I just answered in this game. You know, we had our opportunities to win this game. I'm not going to talk about the whole second half. The second half just started of the season, if that's what you mean. And we won last week and lost this week. And thought we had every opportunity to win this game, and we didn't get it done. So we got to make sure we find a way to win next week.
You're saying that Bosa had a separate hip injury? Mm-hmm. Is it the other hip? Is it?
Yeah, the other one. Not hip, oblique.
With Christian back, you haven't been able to get the running game too consistently. Is that just blocking there? What are you seeing on not being able to kind of pop one?
I think we didn't break a big one today. I mean, last time versus them, I think we had a 174-yarder and 138-yarder. Today it was some solid running, but no big ones. They did a good job not letting us get through their secondary, but when you don't get a big one, it's tough to get those yards.
Brock today.
Same as everyone. Did some good things and missed some things.
Jauan Jennings obviously had a pretty good game fourth quarter. How much do you guys miss George Kittle, though? It seems like whenever he's out of the lineup, it really does affect the offense.
Yeah, whenever you're missing good players, it's always a big deal. You know, it's we went a little extra. We played Jalen Moore a little bit at tight end today. Something different to help with that. That Eric stepped it up and did good, especially showing up this morning sick and things like that. But yeah, George is a great player, so it always helps when he's out there.
Did you have any kind of setback, or was that just from the irritation?
No setback. Just couldn't go. Would have been too risky.
What would you say to the team about this loss?
Kind of exactly what I just said to you guys. Like, we had every opportunity to run away with that and put it away. Thought the defense did a bunch of that, especially getting that turnover in the third quarter. Felt real good about going in and scoring, and we couldn't overcome the penalties. It happened on 2 of our drives that cost us points, I think, at the end of the second half, and also in the beginning of the third quarter. The other drive in the first half, the other punt, we had the turnover on that one drive in the first half, but it's when you have opportunities to do it and you hurt yourself with penalties and a few missed opportunities, you got to finish it there at the end. And was disappointed because I thought the offense had every chance to do that, and we didn't get it done there. And
Bosa was having such a strong game up to the point of where he got hurt. How debilitating is it to look, for everybody to look and see their defensive player of the year standing on the sidelines when the game's in the balance?
I mean, we don't think about that in the moment. I mean, just like his question with George, helps when Nick's out there, especially on that last drive and stuff. But thought we had a couple opportunities to get to him. I think we did get a sack or 2 on that last drive, but him getting those 2 scrambles killed us.
He scrambled a lot in this game. Was he leaving the pocket prematurely, or were guys not getting open on those plays?
He's been scrambling every game all year. So sometimes it's because he has a lane, sometimes because someone's not open. I mean, it's a different one to every single play. There's never just one narrative on when he scrambles.
I think they mentioned that Bosa was able to play through the hip injury last week. Clearly, he wasn't able to play through it today.
It was a different hip injury. Yeah, it was the other hip.
It was the other hip. My question is, the seriousness of this hip injury, do you think it would be like similar to Kittle's situation where he was able to kind of practice this week but wasn't able to go? Do you think it's the same for Bosa next week, or you're not so sure right now?
I hope so. I mean, I don't know anything but what I told you guys. It's hip oblique, and it's his other hip, and he couldn't return to the game, which means it was bothering him. So we'll see how he is tomorrow. Hopefully it's not too big of a deal, but that's all we really know right now.
Challenges, was they telling you upstairs that there was clear calls, or was it borderline even when you threw the flag?
I mean, no, you're not totally 100% sure. We felt pretty close to it. They went hurry up on both of them. And I thought it was too big of a down to risk it. I still believe that they were out, but you can't totally tell with the camera angles. And when it does go that way and you can't fully see it with the angles, they're not going to overturn it.
Thanks to the 49ers for that audio. I want to stick on the explosive plays aspect of this. We heard Kyle Shanahan talk about that quite a bit after the 49ers 20-13 loss. This is overtime on 95.7 The Game. Mark Grandy, Sterling Bennett, and I'm Kyle Madsen. They had 5 explosive plays today. That's a run of 10-plus yards or a pass of 20-plus yards. 2 of them were Brock Purdy scrambles.
Including the touchdown run, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So they had 3 designed plays today that went for explosives. One of them was in the first quarter. It was a 22-yard pass to Jauan Jennings. Mm-hmm. The other one, the one in the second half, was Christian McCaffrey's 11-yard run on the first down after they got the ball back after the 4th down stop. They had 1 explosive play in the second half. Like, how does that? I don't understand how that happens.
This is not an elite Seattle defense.
No.
Far from it.
And I don't know, man. I don't understand how, and I think I do. It's because the offensive line didn't play great. But how are they playing a style of defense that's eliminating explosive plays down the field in the passing game while also eliminating explosive plays in the run game? How is all of that happening at one time against a defense that is very mid at best? I
feel like it goes back to something that we've talked about for the majority of the season, and I know we all kind of dance around like the blame Shanahan discussion. We're
having the dance. Let's go.
And we can like have this discussion and also firmly believe that he shouldn't be fired and he shouldn't be on the hot seat or whatever. Or maybe you are leaning that way more now. I'm not. But when was the last time you felt like Kyle Shanahan just dominated the opposing defensive coordinator? Like he knows what's coming. He's calling the right plays at the right time. He sees the blitz. He's got an easy counter to that. He draws up a special play like a couple of years ago in Seattle on the road where Purdy fakes a throw left, fakes a throw right, comes back middle, Kittle wide open down the middle part of the field, a walk-in touchdown. Like, when was the last time you reacted to a Niners offensive play and says, whoa, that was just Shanahan showing off? That's why Kyle is one of the best play callers in the NFL. It's been a really long time. And for the majority of this season, you like zoom out and you look at each game as an individual entity. And I feel like for the majority of the games this year, like if you're calling the offensive play caller Shanahan versus the defensive play caller on the other end, the defensive play caller has like won those head-to-head battles for the majority of the season. Like, Shanahan is not having himself a very good season. And I think that goes exactly hand in hand with what you're talking about, Kyle, the lack of explosive plays. A defense is taking away one thing, you should be able to take advantage of the other. But the defense has been able to take away both things. You're not getting explosives in the pass or in the run. That makes no sense. That feels like it's squirrely on Shanahan.
Well, and the player that was supposed to fix things, Christian McCaffrey, in his first two games, 4.2 yards a carry today, 3 yards a carry against the Buccaneers. Meanwhile, Jordan Mason's on the bench today, which it's not a Christian McCaffrey issue, by himself, but 2 carries, 13 yards. Last week, 1 carry, 5 yards. So far this year, Jordan Mason has had 1 game where he's had under 4 yards a carry.
Man.
Why is he not playing more? Why is Grendo not getting snaps? And okay, Christian McCaffrey off the injury. We will all give CMC the time he needs to find himself again and get his legs back. We'll all do that.
Sure.
The issue is you don't have time. You lose next week under 500, still in last place. You didn't get any help this week. The Rams won. You lost to Seattle. And the Cardinals didn't even play. We're talking about a team that has dug themselves a hole, but also, like, I don't know who the caller was, but they need help. And when you need help and other teams don't want to give you that help, you got to look internally. Think, okay, what do we need to change? What do we have to fix? And for a head coach that arguably since, week 17 against the Commanders really hasn't come alive and had a dominating game. They barely beat the Packers. They barely beat the Lions in the playoffs last year. They played 1 good half against the Chiefs defense until Spags made adjustments and fixed things. They haven't really had a great game offensively this year. We're talking about almost a year of non-great offensive play from San Francisco, calendar-wise. Shanahan's letting opposing teams dictate what he does. He's getting off what's working to then say, okay, now we'll get him here. 2nd and 11, played a Deebo Samuel, back there by Purdy, fine. But also, you can make Seattle waste that timeout by running the football with Jordan Mason. Even if you get you 4 or 5 yards. Okay, so it's 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, not 3rd and 11. That's manageable. The Niners have been, and football's so complex and so hard, but the Niners have been painstakingly, just making me want to pull my hair out, because you look at the decisions they make and you're like, why? What are we doing? Why this? Why that? And if I'm doing that, you're doing that, and so is everybody else. Of why are we not running the football? They have 2 timeouts. Make them waste those. If they don't have any timeouts on that last drive, do they even score? Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it's a field goal. Maybe they're still playing right now. It's small stuff. Well, not exactly right now, but maybe the outcome's different, right? Maybe they go into overtime. But it's just the Niners this year or in previous years, you're cheering, yes, that was smart. It was innovative. This year, it's shaking your head of why. And you're questioning decisions from one of the best head coaches in football that's getting out coached by rookie defensive coordinators.
Yeah.
It shouldn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. Just to stick on one of the things you were talking about there, the second and 11 throw to Deebo Samuel. I actually kind of like the aggressiveness.
Sure.
I like the going for, because if they catch that, it's game.
Yeah.
They're in field goal range. Seattle's got to take the timeout. Yeah, I understand it, but to Deebo Samuel, when you have Jauan Jennings, who's at 10 catches, what do you have, 10 for 91 today? And you're having your quarterback throw it to a tightly covered Deebo Samuel, and then he airmails the throw, which made it look even worse. That's where I kind of question, what are we missing something with Deebo? I thought he looked terrible today, and in the biggest spot of the game, they're still throwing it to him. So that's where. So I don't hate the decision in a vacuum, but overall, to your larger point, it feels like more times than not this year we have watched a 49ers game and gone, wait, what were they doing that? What? Why did they do that? Instead of, oh, dude, Shanny in his bag, which it feels like we used to do all the time.
Every game. But
I think there's a reckoning that needs to happen where, hey, Deebo Samuel is not that guy anymore. The role he plays in your offense has to be different. Jauan Jennings is obviously very clearly better than they thought he was. You need to adapt accordingly. Christian McCaffrey, or not Christian McCaffrey, excuse me, Jordan Mason, who you just talked about, Sterling, is very clearly a really good player. Find ways to get in the ball. Oh, you're short a receiver? What does Christian McCaffrey do well? Oh, you can split him out and he can play receiver? Why not put them both on the field? Why not get creative? Why not do something fun? Why are you going, oh, Eric Saubert is just going to do George Kittle stuff. Okay, and Ricky Pearsall, you're now Brandon Ayuk on this play. Man, no. Adapt. This is not that you still got some dudes, but these are not the dudes that you thought you had. So redo your offense.
Jordan Mason, 2 carries, 13 yards. They happened on consecutive plays in the second drive of the game.
Look great.
Did not touch the ball the rest of the game.
Didn't touch it.
And those 2 runs got them in the red zone, and they scored a touchdown on that drive.
Yeah, 8-yard run, his first touch, and then a 5-yard run right after that.
I also, I understood last year, okay? Because the clamoring for Jordan Mason really started last year. And it made sense. Every time he touched the ball, it was like, holy crap, can anyone tackle this guy?
They nicknamed him the closer.
Right. That was just his, but I understood why they didn't want to go to him. It's like, man, I don't know if he's great at blitz pickup. I don't know if he's good as a receiver. Can he hold on to the football? He's never really been in a tight spot. So I understand why they lean on the offensive player of the year. We have an 8-week sample of this guy being good as hell at the NFL. Give him the ball.
And he's clear, he's good over the course of the season. The first 5 weeks, 4 weeks, elite.
Yes.
Leading the league in rushing.
Right.
And I think he wore down a little bit, but no, you're not giving him 20 touches a game anymore. He's fresh. He's ready to go.
And I don't think any of us are asking for 30 carries for Jordan Mason.
No, of course not.
Or even 15. Can I get 8?
And we're also not saying necessarily take a bunch of touches away from McCaffrey. He's clearly still the best running back in the NFL.
He's good.
When he's healthy.
Yes.
I mean, Saquon and Derrick Henry having awesome years. I get that.
No doubt.
But Sterling is absolutely right. You can get a little bit more creative here. Put McCaffrey in the slot. Have Jordan Mason on the left hip of Brock, and let's have some fun.
Let's get weird.
Yeah.
I don't know
when's
where that
the last time. When's the last time a player has been 4th in rushing after week 8 and not used more than 5 times in a game?
Whenever they get hurt.
Right, and Mason's relatively healthy.
He's I don't get it, man.
It just there's a reason why, and this is via Nick Wagoner, Kyle. I know a close friend of yours, obviously.
Salute.
They've lost 3 divisional games after leading in the final 2 minutes of regulation. That's tied for the most losses by a team since the 1970 merger, and the first time since the 2001 Carolina Panthers.
Guess
Tough.
what?
That's really bad.
They got 2 more opportunities to add to that
this
number.
is big time. Let's go. The 2024 49ers. It could always be worse.
Although, let's be real, they're probably not going to have a fourth quarter lead against the Cardinals or Rams.
And that's the other thing that stinks about this is I know I joked earlier that like by the time the Packers game starts, I'm going to talk myself into it. But the fact of the matter is you start looking down their schedule, and this is why today's loss is so devastating, because if you win this game and you move to 6-4,
you're tied atop the division.
You're tied for the division lead. You're a half game back of Washington for the number 7 seed. You're just in the thick of it. Now, if you knock off Green Bay, they drop to 7-4. You move to 7-4. You're jumping up. Even if you don't pass the Cardinals, you're right there in the wild card. And man, you feel really good. You've given yourself a little margin for error. Now you can lose to the Bills. You can lose to the Lions. You win your division games. You're okay. And now it's like, hey, you don't have that anymore. And on top of that, I don't know how are you confident the 49ers are going to beat the Packers in Lambeau?
No.
No.
Beat the Bills in Buffalo?
Absolutely not.
No. Beat the Bears at home?
Probably.
We got a coin flip? We got a coin flip. Are they beating the Rams on Thursday night?
No.
I don't feel good about that at all.
Rams are also kind of weird, but yeah, it doesn't feel great.
Yeah, you don't. This is where the Kyle Shanahan of it all comes in. I don't feel convinced that the 49ers are going to outcoach the Rams in that game. And I don't think the talent gap, given their current rosters, is wide enough that it won't matter.
Well, I mean, what happened last time these two teams played? When the Rams had nobody.
Nobody.
And the Niners lost.
Then they play at the Dolphins. We feeling good about that one?
No.
I'm not. I'm not. Home against the Lions?
Absolutely not.
40 burger.
You see what the Lions did today?
Yeah.
I think they scored touchdowns on like all of their possessions.
6 of 6 drives.
Just cruising. It is so easy for the Lions right now. And then they're at Arizona to end the year.
That game might not even matter.
Might not even matter.
They could realistically lose every single one of those games, and I would not be shocked.
Me neither.
Going into this week,
this stinks.
This was the week where I kind of felt like the script turning a little bit. It was so often it was, all right, you're gonna have to win your division. There's no chance you're gonna be a wild card team.
Yeah.
Wild card was 100% feasible going into this week, and it's still possible with this loss. But this kind of feels like the point where, all right, you're probably not going to be able to be a wild card team. You're not going to be 5, 6, or 7 seed because there's just too many good teams in the NFC, in the middle pack of the NFC, and the Niners might not be there. You're going to have to win the division most likely, and to do that, you're going to have to win your division games because you don't have tiebreakers over anybody, which means you're going to have to win against the Rams, and you're going to have to win against the Cardinals, and you're going to need the Cardinals to trip up on the way that you're a game behind them. Like you have to beat them to technically tie them, and then they're going to have the tiebreaker because they have a better division record at this point.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have to get help from the Cardinals or whoever's playing the Cardinals, and you're going to have to take care of your own business. Like this was the turning point, and I'm going to take a break in a second, and I'll get out of here in just a minute. But like,
you can take us to break if you want.
For so long, I've been asking like everyone I come across. Well, you had to pick a division winner. Who are you picking? For me, it's always still been the Niners. Even as recent as last week, I think today is when this changes for me. I don't think I'm picking the Niners to win this division anymore. It just doesn't feel like it. Feels like it's the Cardinals division, which is odd considering they were one of the worst teams in the NFL last year. And obviously they had injuries. I get that. This feels like the turning point for me where I have completely lost confidence and faith that the Niners are suddenly going to flip a switch and they're going to look like they did last year. I think it's done.
The football's not on their side, and now, as you just laid out, the math is not on their side. If they don't win the division outright, they're not going to win it because they are maximum 3-3 in the division with splits against everybody. Maximum. It's not going to get it.
Yeah, at the best.
That's tough. All right. Well, you want to do this for another hour?
Oh, we can hear from Brock Purdy. You want to hear from Brock next?
Oh, I would we got Brock Purdy. Yeah, we'll hear from Brock.
We can hear from Fred, and we can hear from Bosa.
Great. We'll let the 49ers talk us through this. 888-957-9570. We would love to hear from you. That is the phone line. That is the Comcast business text line. Would love to hear from you 49er fans. How are you punting too on the season? Because I think that's kind of where we're all at. We'll talk about it more next on 95.7 The Game. This is Overtime.
Oh no, my phone.
Hear that? It's the sound of a skater dropping her phone and smashing it on the ice. Yep, it's definitely broken.
Twitch and YouTube. Powered by First NorCal Credit Union.
Bringing an extra man out of the secondary here, and Purdy runs away from it. One-on-one to the pylon, the dive! He is in for the touchdown! No turf monster that time, just a touchdown for Brock Purdy.
Well, they usually tell players do not reach the ball for the pylon unless it's fourth down, but I guess if you're Brock Purdy and you score, Kyle Shanahan's just going to give him a high five and say, all right, man.
Now back to overtime with Grandy, Madsen, and Bennett, with sounds from the locker room and your calls at 888-957-9570. Overtime continues now.
Oh, remember when it was fun? That sure was nice.
I asked you live when that play happened, how many quarterbacks across the NFL make that play that Brock Purdy did? 11 yards scramble, dives headlong, and sneaks the ball inside the pylon. How many quarterbacks in the NFL make that play?
We decided less than 10.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a pretty short. It's Lamar.
Yeah.
It's Josh Allen. It's maybe Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, I think
it's not Derek Carr.
Good point.
Definitely
Here's
not.
who it's not. No. I think Anthony Richardson gets there just because he's such a superior athlete.
Yeah. He might do it like just by running over somebody as opposed to diving headlong for the pylon.
Yeah, he's a superhero.
He did that today.
Kyler probably does it.
Yeah,
You're right,
Kyler for sure.
It's maybe like 6 or 7 quarterbacks.
Mahomes might get somebody with a little pump fake there by the sideline.
Which Brock also happened today too with Brock.
Yeah.
Pump faked a guy for a first down.
Yeah, man. Let's.
But it means
I didn't
nothing.
think it was right. I didn't think it was. I don't want to come across like we're like, yeah, Brock was awesome. I didn't think he was great today. Let's hear from the 49ers quarterback from his presser after the game right here on 95.7 The Game.
It's kind of seemed like the offense wasn't clicking out there today. Was there anything that Seattle was doing that they showed differently from the first time you guys played them?
No, I think their scheme was pretty similar. It was just one of those games where you just couldn't hurt yourself, and I feel like we had just some mishaps with some penalties, and we had opportunities where we're moving the ball and we just kept hurting ourselves. And so operationally, I feel like we got to be better and can't hurt ourselves. And once we have momentum, we got to keep running with it, and we got to finish drives. So.
Ball back with just under 4 minutes, go up 4. What are you thinking there, and how disappointing was it that you could not continue that drive?
Yeah, it was obviously just stay on the field. Try to move the chains, get them to use their timeouts, and run out the clock. And we failed in that area. So got to execute better, got to stay on the field, find a way, and we didn't. So we gave them a chance at the end, and yeah, that's what happened.
Deebo there, I think on second down. Went high. Was it because the defender was cutting it across? Can you explain what happened there?
From what I can remember, yeah, it was more of like I thought I was trying to just keep it away from a backer, and then it sailed on me. So got to watch the film and see what happened.
Kyle's talked about giving you 2 play calls in the huddle and letting you choose at the line of scrimmage. I think I saw you make 1 canned call in the game. Were you liking the first play call he was giving you, or was he just giving you 1 play?
I mean, it just depends on the play. Sometimes, we're already in the right look, what the defense has given us, and so we're going to run the play. And so that's just really how it went for this game. It wasn't, I'm going to go into the game and I'm going to try to can and change all the plays as much as I can. They called the first play, and it's the right look, and we run it. So that's just how it went.
You're always trying to win every game, looking just at one game, but you're 5-5. You got some teams ahead of you in the playoff race. Do you almost have to think you got to win out? How do you think about the big picture?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's our mindset for sure, is to win every single game. And, you got to do it one at a time. You can't look too far ahead. Up next is Green Bay, and we have to be all in on that and not look up. We just have to look down and do our jobs, get better as a unit, and we just got to find a way to win. It's the NFL. It's not easy, and nothing's ever given to you. So.
Setting up chunk plays, not a lot of big plays today. Was that because of the defense or what?
The Seattle defense you're talking about? I mean, I think they just did a good job with, taking away our opportunities to go deep. They did, they kept everything in front of them, it felt like. And so that's from what I can remember. Obviously, I got to go watch the film and see.
You're going to play with whoever you got, but to not have the guy that you really rely on out there, George, on third downs and for plays that you really need, it has a huge factor, isn't it?
For sure. I mean,
when you got an explosive tight end like George, he can block, run, catch the ball, do everything. A defense has to account for him. And so, I mean, we love our tight ends here, but George is definitely, extraordinary and what he brings to the table. So obviously we'd love to get him healthy and get him back.
Makes sense, Brock, like on Thursday that you wouldn't have him?
I really didn't know. He was out at practice and we were throwing a couple routes and stuff. So we were just hoping that, come game time, he'd be healthy and feel good. So, he ended up not playing today. So.
You said nothing ever comes easy. Obviously, it did in the past, but some of those mistakes, penalties, and things like that, you have in the past been able to overcome them. Does it feel like the margin for error is slimmer this year? And if so, how is that kind of showing up week to week?
I mean, it's the NFL. You never want to put yourself in a hole. I mean, the guys across the other side of the ball, man, like they're the best in the world at what they do. And so anytime you have some kind of, holding, false start or something that can hinder you, it's never a good thing. And so obviously, in the years past, it's like, we can put that behind us and play the next play. That's the same for right now. But, we just got to look at the film, be real with ourselves, and just try to limit those kind of things, man, because just because we had success the last couple of years doesn't mean, the next play or just because something bad happens to us, we're just magically going to make up for it. Like, we got to have the chip on our shoulder to go take it every single play and down and game. So we just got to get back to that mindset.
What was Kyle's message to the team in the locker room after the game?
We just ran through the game and we had plenty of opportunities to win that game, take it over. And we failed at it, and he obviously took ownership for himself as well, and we all did in the locker room, and we're all not satisfied with how we played, but he said, next game is up, we got to watch the film, get better from this, and focus on Green Bay.
If you guys had won that third down conversion to Jauan, where he ran through about 4 guys, would have been pretty significant. What would you see from your vantage point, and is that kind of reflective of just his tenacity and desire?
What play are you talking about? The
plays before the touchdown pass to Jauan.
Yeah, I mean, that's just who he is. You give him a chance and an opportunity, man, he'll make the most of it, and he's going to fight for every yard, and he's one of the toughest guys on the field, and he inspires all of us, man, just the way he plays and the energy that he brings, and you saw that. The whole stadium fed off that after that. So love playing with him, love going to war with that guy. And we just got to continue to get better together.
That's Brock Purdy, audio courtesy of the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, no, I'll get it someday. I'll learn how to talk. The good news is I don't do radio. Could you imagine? Mark Grandy there, Sterling Bennett there. I'm Kyle Madsen. This is Overtime here on 95.7 The Game. 888-957-9570 if you'd like to join the conversation. Look, man, we said this at the top of the show, and I think it's worth reiterating because we can talk about coaching, we can talk about George Kittle's injury and Jordan Mason's usage and the offensive line, but I think what a lot of this stuff comes down to is the 49ers need more from their quarterback. If they're going to pay him like a franchise signal caller, for me, he has to be better in games like today. You go look at his numbers, and the numbers aren't going to be terrible, right? What did he finish?
21 for 28, 159 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception.
Yeah, 21 to 28. You're like, oh, okay, $159. The interception, like that interception was never there. He had two or three other throws that probably should have been intercepted.
This felt like a game where the Seahawks just said, all right, we're not going to get beat down the field in the passing game.
Mm-hmm.
And the Niners offense was not good enough to counteract that. And a lot of that is on Brock Purdy,
mm-hmm.
right? Like try taking away the deep ball from Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm.
You can't.
Mm-hmm.
Like he'll find a way, and obviously a lot of that is okay. You got Jamar Chase, like that's a difference maker.
Sure.
And that's part of this as well. Now the 49ers have all pro weapons on offense all over the place, even without George Kittle. Like
mm-hmm.
that's not a mystery either. But I think you're onto something, Kyle. Like in a game like this, where for whatever reason, maybe it's the reality now, but at least it was true today. Deebo Samuel isn't giving you much.
Nope.
The run game isn't really getting you the chunks that you need consistently. Okay, okay, Mr. Quarterback, you got to go out and make some hero plays. And he didn't make many hero plays. He made a couple. I mean, the touchdown run was amazing. It
was great.
But he didn't make enough. And the reality is, if the defense is going to take away a lot of the other things, and your quarterback can't counteract that himself and just say, all right, I mean, that's an elite quarterback making an elite play, then you're going to finish with 17 points against a average, maybe subpar defense. And that's what happened today.
What did you think of Purdy's day, Sterling?
A lot was made of what Purdy could do without Christian McCaffrey early in the season. I think we all agreed, okay, it was pretty good, right? There were some games that were better than others for sure, and there's a lot of elite quarterback play happening. Him extending plays, him saving some plays, him making his own plays, a lot of great things without CMC on the football field. And they all said, great, once CMC comes back, this is going to be even better. He'll have the check down option back and feel more comfortable and whatnot. With CMC back, it's looked different. It's looked almost worse. And it's not Christian McCaffrey's fault. When you put a new player into an offense, there's going to be bumps and bruises along the way for sure. But this is a game where you expect, okay, Brock, they're taking away your deep ball. They're defending the run well. The ball's in your hands. Make a play. And at times he did. He got them a lead late, got him a lead early. But there's still those dry spells in games that you're like, okay, you can score 7 early, you can score 7 late, and you can have the lead. Cool. But there's this massive gap in between that is yet to be filled. And I think there's too many times where you see them put one big play together, then it's, okay, run stuff, 2nd and 10, incomplete pass, 3rd and long. Okay, well, that's not always on Brock's shoulders, but a lot of that is. And I honestly, I think a lot of the issue is that Shanahan now has a quarterback that he believes in, that he believes can make his own plays, can do things that the previous quarterbacks here couldn't. And it has taken away some of the creativity because he believes in a quarterback more than he ever has. And Shanahan's somewhat taken a back seat to that. And for Brock, I think it would almost be better for Brock to play in a more stricter structure. That way, the plays that he does make with his legs and whatnot are not needed 4 to 5 times a drive. Whereas every single drive, he's having to run for a first down, evade pressure, whatnot. And that comes down to offensive line play for sure. But the last 3 games, Dallas, the Buccaneers game, and today, Brock's not been great. That second half against the Cowboys, he was really good. First half was not good at all. First half against the Bucs was not good at all. The whole game tonight was not good. Outside of 2 drives. Like, you need more from a quarterback because your season rides on that quarterback giving you more.
I also think what happened specifically today, and I'd have to dive into the numbers from all the other games this year, but what happened today, the Seahawks, again, with what they did defensively, limiting chunk plays specifically in the pass game, and okay, if they're doing that, you should be able to get chunks in the run game. For whatever reason, that wasn't consistent. But they shortened the game. The Niners in the second half had 4 drives, and that includes the final 12 seconds. So they really had 3 drives in the second half. The Niners had an 8-minute drive. That was the touchdown drive in the first half. They had a 7-minute drive that resulted in a punt. 7 minutes of possession and you punt.
Crazy, dude.
They had a 9-minute drive that resulted in a touchdown. Okay, so what happens when you shorten the game and when you're unable to get chunks and move the ball quick? You're kind of just narrowing like the margin of error that you have. Like if you are the underdog, as the Seahawks were, 5.5-point dogs at kickoff. I think it was up around 6.5 earlier leading up to the game. Might have even been 7 some places. Like you're nearly a touchdown favorite in this game. The underdog wants to shorten the game because the fewer drives that both teams have, the fewer opportunities that the favorite has to distance themselves, right? You're making it a shorter game. Instead of playing 4 quarters, you're playing like 3 quarters. Like you are limiting the number of times the opponent has the ball and thereby the number of times that the opponent can hurt you offensively. And what does that do? It emphasizes the importance of every single play and of every single possession. It makes the Brock interception that much more hurtful. Because you don't have another opportunity, as many opportunities to counteract that and to score a touchdown that you could have had off that interception. So the Seahawks, I think they just out-schemed the 49ers. They had a plan from the jump. If the Niners were going to score, they were going to do it by, possessing the ball for 7 or 8 minutes. And I think that's where this Niner offense is the most different from last year. They're not having the 80-yard drive that takes 2 minutes off the clock anymore.
Yep.
The gigantic McCaffrey run. The Deebo Samuel big play. The Ayuk down the right sideline. The Kittle big play, touchdown from 70 yards. I think about the one in Jacksonville last year where it was the Brock double pump in the pocket, finds Kittle. Kittle runs into the end zone from like 65 yards out or whatever it was for a touchdown. They're not doing that. They simply don't have that big play in them anymore, and it makes every single drive, every single scoring drive they have, like you have to check 10 boxes along the way to get it done, and that's hard to do. Like they're not beating opponents in those big flashy ways anymore, and it's making everything that much more difficult. And when your quarterback isn't able to just say, all right, they're trying to take this away, but it doesn't matter, I'm going to go get it anyway, then you are left with games like this where the opponent can shorten the game, and it's going to come down to, did you turn the ball over and did you settle for field goals? And the Niners turned the ball over and they settled for a couple of field goals.
It not only makes everything harder on offense, but it turns all these little mistakes in a game. 9 penalties for 54 yards?
Yeah. Yep.
9 penalties for 54 yards is not a disaster class. But when it's what Mark is talking about and everything is difficult on offense, every drive is uphill in the snow both ways, a 10-yard penalty is a disaster. Yeah. So 9 penalties for 54 yards is a mess for this 49ers team. And it makes everything more difficult. One special teams mishap makes everything that much more difficult. All of these mistakes that may not be backbreaking in a vacuum become so because, man, it just makes this already steep hill that much steeper. And it makes all these little things that go wrong that much worse. It makes a touchdown at the end of a game with 12 seconds left, it turns it into a loss instead of, okay, well, they scored that touchdown, but now they need to get the onside kick, and then they need to score, and then they need a two-pointer, so everything's fine. It just, every mistake is so much more glaring now because that margin for error has shrunk. And on top of it, it's what Mark is talking about, where the explosive kind of high-flying offense that we're used to just isn't there. And I guess my question is do they get it back ever? Or have we just watched the end of the effective Kyle Shanahan 49ers?
Well, it's not like we haven't seen opposing teams take away George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk and company in big games too. So
yeah,
it's not like the offense, even when it's hitting explosive plays, has also been shown to, you can limit what they do. You can take away what they do offensively in big games. And we've seen Shanahan get out-coached in playoff games plenty of times, and sometimes he narrowly escapes and whatnot, but you're also asking a team that, okay, if you're not going to hit explosive plays, can you be this long, drawn-out 8-minute drives where you just pound in the rock, you're getting 5-6 yards a run, and you're just bleeding out the defense. You're wearing them down, and you're going to score 7, but you're going to make them pay on the way to the end zone. This team can't put together 3 consecutive good plays. And if you're not going to get 10 yards a pop here or there, you're not going to have these explosive plays and whatnot, can you at least give me 3 consecutive positive downs, not call back for a penalty or whatnot? And they can't. They go too many drives of, okay, first down run for 1 yard, second down and 9. We're going to pass it, incompletion, 3rd and 9 to get the first down. Maybe then it's called back for a holding call or illegal formation because no one knows what they're actually doing. When you're not going to have the explosive plays, the expectation is, okay, we're going to win differently. We're going to be like the Steelers of the last few years. Okay, we're not going to be a great offense, but we're going to run the rock. And we're going to have Najee Harris and Jalen Warren and company, and we're going to make sure the opposing defense feels us for the next 15 plays. And even if we just get 3, we're going to hurt them on the way to getting 3. San Francisco can't even get out of their own way to score 3 points. They had the ball twice on Seattle's 35-yard line and didn't score once.
Yeah.
I think the problem, and maybe I'm wrong here, but it feels like the problem to me with being the Steelers or being a team that, hey, it's going to be run first and we're just going to get back to this, is the reason that used to work is because they were really confident their defense was going to go to stop.
Sure.
And I don't think they are anymore. Their defense was really good today, but I don't think Kyle Shanahan calls games or goes into every game going, okay, our defense might pitch a shutout today. And I don't know if that's changing the way he's calling games. I don't know if it's the injury stuff. I don't know if it's Brock. I have no clue. But it's really clear the formula that they want to use isn't going to work, and they've just not adapted to it.
Yeah.
They can't win games how they used to, and it feels like they're still trying to. And they just don't have the clubs in their bag to play the course they're having to play.
I've had the same exact thought. And it was something I was gonna bring up to you guys next segment, but I'll just tease it now and we can get into it coming up next.
That's a pro.
This has often been like used as a question people throw out, I think, to knock Brock Purdy, right? What would you rather have? The Niners trailing by a score in the last minute or two, but the Niners offense has the ball, or the Niners leading by a score with a minute or two left, but the defense is on the field. And I think oftentimes people use that as a way to get an answer of, I'd rather have the defense on the field because I don't trust Brock Purdy can go out and get the score when needed. But you look at what's happened this season, and I can just ignore what happened on the offensive side. The Niners defense largely this year hasn't been bad, hasn't been terrible, but in the key moments, game on the line, get me a stop, we win this football game, or at least we go to overtime, whatever the case is. They have failed almost every single one of those.
Yeah, they got the one in Tampa last week.
That's about it.
With their top 4 receivers out.
And they tried their best to lose that one, too.
Boy, did they.
They really tried. And they still gave up a field goal to tie the game.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't keep points off the board.
They didn't get off the field.
But they did not give up the touchdown that would have likely lost them the game. But, like, against the Rams, get a stop. Nope, couldn't do it. And part of that was the punt return. Like, I know there's other factors there. Cardinals, get a stop. Nope, couldn't do it. Like, this has consistently been a defense that, you know, on the money downs, when the game is on the line, they haven't been able to get that stop. And that is entirely different of Niner teams of the past. Like, 100%, 360, a reversal. Like, they had a
180. A 360 is a full circle.
You're right. 180.
Yeah.
Geometry or whatever. That has never been the case for the Niners. It has always been defense on the field, do or die moment. All right, they're going to get that stop.
Yep.
And they haven't been able to.
Nope. Our guy, Jake Hutchinson at 957thegame.com wrote a story. We encourage you to go check it out. And he said it perfectly. The 2024 49ers don't have another gear. And that's exactly, I think, what this conversation comes down to. All right. We got more to dive into coming up next. We'll have game balls to give out, I guess. We'll take a look around the NFL scoreboard.
I guess.
I mean, I don't know. We'll take a look around the NFL scoreboard. We've got more overtime coming up with Mark Randy, Sterling Bennett. I'm Kyle Madsen here on 95.7 The Game.
Ooh, we got a question. Brian W. asks, it's the holiday season and I'm looking for deals.
fall down into his hands and brings a big smile to a guy who's done just about everything in his time in the NFL. How about a pick of Purdy?
Now back to overtime with Grandy, Madsen, and Bennett with sounds from the locker room and your calls at 888-957-9570. Overtime continues now.
I'm Kyle Madsen. Sterling Bennett's here. Mark Grandy's here. Trying to sift through the wreckage of a 20-17 loss for the 49ers against the Seattle Seahawks. A damaging loss that drops the 49ers to last in the NFC West. They're now way on the outside looking in at the wild card race.
If I would have told you week 11 Niners last in the NFC West, what would you have, like, if I told you that
Purdy
preseason? Yeah.
I just said Brock Purdy got hurt. Would be the...
And we're singing Josh Dobbs or Brandon Allen play quarterback.
That's exactly what I was thought. Yeah.
The pastor.
Salute to him. He has he has a commercial that, like, the crux of the commercial is he's the backup.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's helping the guy hang the photo.
Yeah.
That's incredible. He has turned a career as a backup quarterback into an endorsement.
There's a few of them there. I saw there's a Colt McCoy one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I've only ever seen the Josh
There's a
Dobbs
couple
one.
of
Very
others.
targeted
I think there was a Colt McCoy one on the game today. Maybe you were down grabbing your food or something.
Shows how much I'm paying attention.
I was not watching.
I'm not checking. I'm locked into NFL GSIS.
Honestly, like, if you're able to, like, not pay attention to commercials, that's a good thing for you.
Yeah, dude, I'm buried straight in my phone. As soon as the game goes to commercial.
Twitter.
Right to Twitter.
Yeah.
Or Blue Sky, shout out. It feels to me like even that Brock Purdy interception, which we heard on the way back, thanks to Joe Davis and Fox for the call, Greg Olson also on the broadcast. They do such a great job. Even that interception felt like it was born out of everybody knows where this throw is going. It was a pass forced into Christian McCaffrey because the heat was on Brock Purdy, and they know that's where he's going to go with it.
Yeah.
And Devin Witherspoon got in and got a hand up.
Great coverage. McCaffrey was never open.
No.
Yeah.
And it feels to me like, and this kind of goes back to what we've been talking about the whole show, it's like that lack of creativity. Like, they need a little innovation sensation in their offense. If I may. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Nice.
That's what it feels like. It just, nothing was, because there was a play later in the game on a second down, Boye Mafe gets his hand on the ball.
Yeah.
Tips it at the line. And then on third down, Boye Mafe, the defensive end, is dropped into coverage and just floats into the middle and bats a third down pass down because he knows, like, hey, this is where this throw is going. And that lack of, I never thought that a Kyle Shanahan offense would lack for creativity. And that's, I think, the crux of everything we're seeing right now is there's just nothing different. Everything is the same. They're just now doing it with worse players than they were doing with last year.
Yeah, it feels like opponents, and we've talked a lot about, I think, the Seahawks game plan for this and how it worked very, very well. It feels like opponents are kind of funneling the Niners into certain areas and certain calls and certain plays and certain throws. And obviously, I mean, the defense is the defense is the one driving the decisions, right? Like, the defense is playing X coverage. They're taking away certain parts of the field and just knowing that the Niners' only answer is throw short over the middle. And they're ready for it. Like, you're going to complete some of those passes, and every once in a while you're going to break a tackle and it'll be a 12-yard gain, but it's going to be 4 yards here, 3 yards there, 5 yards there. And while in theory you average 4 yards a play, you're fine, you're moving the sticks. But when you mix that in with a hold and a legal formation and a sack here or there, you need more than 4 yards of play in order to make up that. So, like, and you're exactly right. It's the lack of innovation, the lack of creativity, and it's just being content always with taking what the defense is giving you, and in this instance, what the defense is giving you is only those short throws. And you're not able to counter off of that, and suddenly the offense becomes extraordinarily vanilla, and it's not enough to overcome those mistakes. Like, you can win a football game. The Chargers do it every single week. You can win a football game by getting 4 yards of play if you're not committing all those dumb penalties and getting yourself behind the sticks, the Chargers don't commit those dumb penalties. They take their 4 yards, their 5 yards every single play, and they're on their way to being 7-3 this year. But the Niners do that while also committing endless stupid penalties and stupid mistakes that get them on 2nd and 20 instead of 2nd and 3 or 2nd and 7, 2nd and 6.
It feels like they're never in 2nd or 3rd and short anymore.
Yeah.
Nope. Never. And that stems from not being able to run the football.
Mm-hmm.
When you're getting 3 yards of carry, then a holding call. Okay, now it's 2nd and 15. Okay, 2nd and 18.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Now you have to pass the ball twice.
And then the defense knows what's coming, and they already know what's coming, but they extra know what's coming when it's 2nd and long.
Yeah.
Well, then it's back-to-back checkdowns for 10 total yards, and it's 4th inning at the punt. Like, you're setting yourself up for disaster. But we often thought that the quarterback was the limiting factor in Shanahan's offense, and for a large time it was here in San Francisco. You had a quarterback that couldn't do all the things outside the numbers. It was all over the middle. Now Shanahan's offense has a quarterback that can go outside the numbers and make big plays happen and throw downfield, but the entire offense is centered over the middle of the field. They are taking away the outside and forcing Shanahan back into what we thought was a limited quarterbacking play, but no, now the system itself, the scheme itself has become limited. The script has been flipped on Shanahan, and he's letting defenses dictate what he does, which isn't different than what other teams do. It's always kind of a reaction to what the defense is playing, but in a league that is adapt or die, the Niners are like treading water, trying to find room to breathe. And they aren't adapting, and they're trying to, now we're above 500 for one game. Okay, then boom, right back underwater.
Yeah.
They can't find their footing at all. And if they don't adapt, they're going to be under 500 next week. They're going to miss the playoffs. And we're going to go into an offseason where, Deebo may be gone, Hufunga's gone, is Greenlaw back, Mooney Ward's gone, you pay Brock Purdy. Then bigger questions come, and if you pay Brock Purdy, then it's a head coach tying himself to a quarterback.
Yep.
And if they don't get it done, then that becomes the seat is now getting hot. And that sounds crazy and far-fetched, but that's when things take that downward trend of, hey, a change is coming.
Yeah, and that's where I've been super hesitant to jump on the Kyle Shanahan needs to go conversation because it's just not realistic. If this was the Cowboys, sure, we're gonna have the Mike McCarthy needs to go conversation. But the fact of the matter is Kyle Shanahan's not going anywhere. But Sterling, I think you're spot on here. Where this could be a down year this year. Maybe they finish 7-10. Maybe let's just go there. They win 2 more games the rest of the way and they finish 7-10. Kyle Shanahan's not going to be fired.
No doubt.
But that is where, because, you're paying Brock Purdy now. This is the guy who bailed you out of the Trey Lance deal. Now you're paying this guy, and now the wagon is officially hitched to Brock Purdy. And Kyle Shanahan's future with the 49ers will be tied directly to Brock Purdy's success or failure. So that's kind of where this is going. And I think this year is just expediting the frustration that leads ownership groups to make the significant changes that come with a head coaching change.
Yeah, I generally feel pretty uncomfortable with the whole hot seat around Kyle Shanahan conversation because you're right. That's down the road, but giving someone the richest contract in NFL history, and then if that person doesn't come close to living up to it, that is the kind of thing that gets head coaches, that gets general managers fired. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I remember having the same conversation about the San Francisco Giants offseason a year ago. You spend big money you spend as much money as anybody, not named the Dodgers, and the Dodgers because you had the weird deferred number to Shohei Ohtani. I'm sorry for even bringing that name up and bringing the Dodgers up. The Giants spent the most money of anybody last year in the offseason, the Major League Baseball offseason, other than the Dodgers. It didn't go well. Guess what? The guy making those decisions and handing out those contracts got fired. You spend gigantic money like that and it doesn't work, generally speaking, your owners aren't going to be happy about that. And you're going to get fired. At the very least, you're going to be on a short rope. It's clearly different with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and the Niners because they've had a history of success and great success, literally have accomplished everything multiple times other than the Super Bowl. Everything else they've done multiple times. They have the ability to survive a down year, 2 down years, maybe 3 down years.
Depending on how down they are, for sure.
Depending on how down they are. But you give out contracts, gigantic contracts, and hell, you might be looking at the Deebo one as an example of it already.
Sure.
That don't pan out, and then you're stuck with those deals for years, and they act as an anchor going forward, and they make everything more difficult for you. Like the life of that contract, we're talking like 4, 5, 6 years down the road. That is something that a lot of owners might not be willing to overlook. And that's something that maybe that's where the conversation does begin. But I'm with you. Like it's not happening now.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen this offseason, even if they don't win another game the rest of this year. Like it's not going to happen this offseason.
Yeah.
But once you start giving out that kind of money to somebody, and if it doesn't pan out, then the conversation will certainly tick up.
Well, and I think 1 year, I think if you guys disagree with me, let me know before I continue here. 1 year of yikes, bad season. Kyle Shanahan has built up enough equity to not have his seat get hot.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay, we're good there. But at the same time, that has to change, because what made Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers so successful here, and if you're a championship or bust, everybody's a loser, then I got nothing for you. Then 29 other teams should fire, 31 other teams should fire their coaches. But he has had enough success, sustained success, based on like the culture that they've built, and that consistent, everybody knows game in and game out where they're going to be, and they're going to hold each other accountable. And okay, they might lose 3 in a row going into their bye week, but they're going to come out and they're going to be on fire after the bye week, and everything's going to be awesome. Because even in 2017, they win the 5 games to close the year with Jimmy Garoppolo. 2018, that season was over when Jimmy Garoppolo went down, but they played hard the rest of the way. It becomes an issue when that over multiple seasons, like when we're sitting here through 2 or 3 years going, don't know why they lost this one. They just can't close out games. They just can't, because they used to close out games fine. But it's like if the things that happened this year continue to be a trend where you start to see that culture wearing down and all the things that made him successful, like he starts to kind of lose a locker room, quote unquote, that's when I think you start having that conversation. But I understand people might be frustrated, but I just can't imagine the 49ers and Jed York are sitting there, given what it looked like pre-Shanahan, between Harbaugh and Shanahan, given what it looked like, I just can't imagine they're sitting there like itching to get rid of him.
Let's get Jim Tom Sula back.
Oh my God.
Chip Kelly.
Stop.
Please.
I think Jim Tom Sula is winning championships in like the German football.
Yeah.
Hey man,
the
give it
Rain
up.
Fire, I think,
something like
is
that.
is the team he coaches. Shout out to Jim Tom Sula.
I would not be shocked a little bit, though, in a year like this where they redid Christian McCaffrey's contract, they redid Trent Williams' contract, they restructured Deebo Samuel's contract, they gave out big money to Brandon Ayuk and now Lenore, and they're going to pay Brock Purdy. Like, while one season's not going to make Jed York walk into Shanahan's office and say, get out, I do think that those things weigh on you, that okay, year 1, down year, awkward. Year 2, let's say next year they go 9-8, 10-7, and they barely win the division, and they lose early in the playoffs, which who knows what happens next year. But, okay, that's 2 years of not getting it done. Paying maximum money to players that are aging. They're getting older. And you got to pay Kittle. Then you got to pay Fred Warner. And that's when you start to hear, nope, we're not doing that. Nope, not going to do that. Nope, not going to happen. Not going to invest in this roster anymore. And so while it's week 11 and they lost and it stinks and we're all upset and mad and we're kind of looking ahead in the very, very distant future, that creeps up on you really fast. And I think that for the Niners, whether they can find it again this year, I highly doubt that, but their odds to make the playoffs are 40%. They have 40% chance to make the playoffs this year. You win against the Packers next week, okay, well, a little better. Need some help, sure. It's not out of possibility. 2021 felt like a disaster. They needed help to get in, and they got it. So there is a chance, but even then, even if they get in, the odds they win any game against the Lions, say it's the Packers or the Vikings, like they're not going to be favored, nor should they be. In fact, they really shouldn't be favored the rest of the season at all by the way they played.
Yeah, I would agree. Real quick, I see Rocky and Vallejo. I definitely want to get to Rocky. We'll do that in 1 second. confirmed Jim Tomsula, head coach of the Rain Fire, back-to-back European League of Football champions.
Look at that.
Bring it
The
back,
Rain
baby.
Fire. Shout
Bring
out
him
to
back.
Jim Tomsula, born winner. Rocky in Vallejo has some ideas following the loss. Rocky, is one of them hiring Jim Tomsula?
Oh, no, definitely not, guys. Definitely not. I just wanted to say, that the DC needs to be changed up and bring in Brendan Staley. And then the last thing I would do is, the center, Brendel, he's horrible, man. He's having a bad year. You got to bring up Feliciano. You can't do any worse, man. We got to make those two changes right away. I'll take your response off the air. Thank you.
Thanks, Rocky. Appreciate you. Yeah, man. Jake Brendel's not his best day of reps. It wouldn't shock me at all. Like I
don't think it was his worst game.
Well,
it's not saying much.
This is where I don't know that. Is that a change you're just going to make mid-season? Go ahead, John Feliciano, you're going to come off IR. You're going to be the center now. Let's go.
Probably
I don't see them doing that.
Could it get any worse though?
Like that has there's too much like creativity there. There's too much like kind of outside the box, like risky thinking. In Kyle Shanahan's mind, I think he looks at the players he has and he goes, well, if Jake Brendel just executes better.
Yeah, the problem, Kyle, is he's not executing better.
Don't yell at me.
Sorry. Kyle Shanahan.
Okay, good.
The problem, coach,
fire Kyle right now,
is we have loads of evidence that this dude just simply will not execute better. So what are we doing here?
I don't know.
Loads of evidence.
Yes, we have years worth of evidence. The guy's just not very good. I'm sorry. Say the same thing about Colt McKivitz at right tackle. You use an early draft pick this year on an offensive lineman, and guess what? He's already your second best offensive lineman. Maybe do that every year. One of your first two picks every year should be an offensive lineman. Maybe. Let's do that, please. Like, what are we doing? God.
You don't want a backup tight end in the third round? Cam Latu?
Oh, my God. Draft another running back.
He's not even in the league.
No, why don't you trade up and draft
practice squad tight end?
Why don't you trade
you
up
want a
and
German
draft
league tight end, Cam Latu?
Let's draft the kicker. Let's draft the running back. Let's draft the tight end that never sees the field. Yeah, let's do that.
Zucchi Main on the Comcast business text line says, a little bit of throwing, a little bit of running. Also, no on the Comcast business text line asked if we thought Shanahan lost the confidence of the team. I don't think so. I don't think it's that. Based on just how the players are, you can tell in the way players talk after games. I don't think Diamador Lenore is taking the contract he took. If he had lost confidence in Kyle Shanahan,
it feels like
Nick Bosa wouldn't be out there playing through injuries. Same thing with Trent Williams. I don't think that's the case.
It feels like a group that everybody knows everybody is to blame for what's going on.
Yeah. I think
like
that's
you can't really pin it on any one guy.
Yeah, that was.
Is this the first year that we've seen somewhat of a sideline skirmish, though? That feels like it was an oddity last week against the Buccaneers. It hasn't happened before, right?
I don't think so. Not that I can remember, but they've also not had a kicker miss 3 kicks in a game before. So
that's fair. That's fair. But even
also,
when the quarterback has thrown 3 picks, it wasn't okay. Let's go yell at Jimmy.
They've never failed this spectacularly, though.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
The Jimmy relationships were so weird because he was everybody's best friend. At least all the key guys. He was all of their best friend. Like Kittle and Juszczyk. And
they've just never, like, even 2020 was obviously a mess, but everybody knew, like, okay, Bosa went down early, Garoppolo was hurt and then playing through injury. It was just a bad year.
This is the first year where, I guess 2021, maybe the first half was kind of a disaster, as you guys were talking about. But if this continues, this is the first year where, like, the Niners failed, and it wasn't because of XYZ injuries.
Like, they've definitely been banged up, but I think they have the talent to be better than they are.
Yes.
Do we want to give out game balls real quick, or do we want to keep talking about this?
We can try to give out game balls.
Okay, here we go. Offensive game balls.
There's an obvious one. Who's going first?
Who wants it?
You can take it.
Jauan Jennings gets my game ball. Shout out to Jauan Jennings. Sterling, do you want to go now?
There really isn't anybody else. Feels like it's kind of the only one. You know what? For offense, I guess you kind of have to go with Brock Purdy. He had 2 touchdowns today. It wasn't a great day at all. Again, 21 for 28, 159 yards, 40 yards on the ground. He was his team's leading rusher for like a whole half a play, which should never happen for Brock Purdy, but I digress. Got them a lead late, had him a lead early. That's all I can say, I guess.
All right.
I'm gonna stretch the definition of offense. Jake Moody didn't miss a kick today.
Wow.
That's big time for our guy.
Made a field goal and made both of his extra points. Jake Moody, game ball.
Can I give an honorable mention before we move to defense? Jordan Mason. Came to play today.
Averaged 6.5 yards per
get to play, but he came to play. 2 carries for 13 yards.
McCaffrey deserves a shout out. Over 100 all-purpose yards. I mean, that's just run of the mill for McCaffrey, but yeah.
What about on the defensive side? Mark, you go first.
I'm gonna go Leonard Floyd. I already said I thought this was his best Niner game, best game as a Niner. He had a sack and a half. Once Bosa went out, he was the only guy getting any sort of consistent pressure on Geno Smith. Obviously, it was not enough. I know that. But Leonard Floyd, I'll give him a game ball. I thought he was good. He was good, and as a number 2 pass rusher alongside Bosa for the majority of the game. That should be enough to get the job done. Obviously, when Bosa goes down, it's a different story. But I thought Leonard Floyd was good. He gets a game ball.
Great. Sterling?
Yeah, I think I will go ahead and give him his tag team partner, Nick Bosa. Didn't play the whole fourth quarter, it seemed like, and because of the injury, and it feels like he's not going to play next week too. Both obliques are injured now. That's not good.
That was awkward in Shanahan's post-game presser. They couldn't figure out what the injury was. They couldn't figure out which side it was on. They called it a hip. They called it an oblique. They said it was the same. Then they said it was the other one. It doesn't sound good.
It's never great when the player after the game is like, Usually the player's like, yeah, I'm going to be good. I'll be fine. Yeah. And Bosa was like, I got no idea. Oh, no.
But you're right, Sterling. He was good.
Yeah, he was.
He had 4 tackles, 2 by himself, 4 total, 1.5 sacks, which was tied for Floyd with the team lead. He had 2 tackle for losses, the most on the entire team in this game. And also, he had 2 quarterback hits behind Floyd for the team's lead. So, not an entire game of play, but in the time he did play, Nick Bosa was still doing Nick Bosa type stuff out there.
I'm going to shout out Renardo Green.
Yeah.
Didn't have his best game as a pro, but 8 tackles. He had a pass breakup. There was one run in particular where he did a really, really nice job of setting the edge and forcing Kenneth Walker to the sideline and getting him out of bounds. I just think Renardo Green is a really, really good player. And he showed up. Again, it wasn't like he was locking anybody down, but I thought for the most part he had a really, really nice game. So shout out to Renardo Green. He gets the other game ball. Isaac Yiadom, first interception. Was an easy one.
That was just, what the hell is Geno Smith doing on that one?
I feel like he's good for 1 or 2 of those a game.
I think he was targeting Jackson Smith and Jigba, who was like, he threw it like 10 yards over the top of him.
Yeah.
There's another receiver further down the field, but I think he was targeting JSN. If he was targeting JSN, that was one of the worst throws I've seen in football this year.
But if he was targeting the other guy wasn't even in the picture.
I know.
So, not Geno's best throw. Alas, he gets the last laugh with the game-winning rushing touchdown with 12 seconds left, and the Seahawks escape Levi Stadium with a 20-17 win. The 49ers snap a 6-game winning streak against Seattle. Oof. Tough.
I mean, even when the Niners
everything about this sucked.
Even when the Niners had struggled in the past, like 2021.
Yes.
Like the first half of 2021, really like the first 12 games of 2021
3 and 5
was so bad. It was ugly and it was painful. They still took care of the division. Like when a division game comes around, you're getting the best Niners. Like it was the 2021 season, I believe. Maybe they were 3 and 5 or whatever it was. Monday night against the Rams, and it was like you lose, and you're probably benching Jimmy, and you're going to see Trey Lance. Like season's probably over if you lose that game. And they come out and like win by like 3 touchdowns. Yeah. Like you got the best Niners. You had consistently gotten the best Niners in division games. Didn't matter who the opponent was, really.
Yeah.
Specifically Seahawks games and Rams games, but that hasn't been the case. 1 and 3 in the division, and they should have won all 4 of them.
Yeah.
Ugly.
I was trying to think. 21. Yeah, that was Trey Lance lost the Cardinals game. In his first start.
Yes.
But that was, I think
they had
that's
lost the Seahawks game the week prior, actually, I believe, because Jimmy got hurt mid-game.
Yes, that's absolutely,
but they won
definitely what happened.
They won the rest of the division games.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's absolutely what happened. The 925 said we're handing out participation trophies. Like, yeah, that was kind of the bit.
I mean,
that was kind of the joke.
What else is there to give out?
That's a little bit the
They
joke.
lost.
When they lose, we should hand out like game falls.
That might happen.
Who are we blaming? Who are the worst performers of the day? Maybe we can try that next time.
Well, today,
looking at you, Deebo.
Yeah, it says Deebo for today. There's no doubt. Yeah, I got nothing else. I think we did a pretty good job summing it up.
Yeah, I think we crushed it. Perfect show by us. Well done. For Sterling Bennett, for Mark Grandy, I'm Kyle Madsen. This has been Overtime. The 49ers fall to the Seahawks 20-17. San Francisco now last in the NFC West, heading into a Week 12 matchup against the Packers at Lambeau Field. Can't wait to continue reacting to this game and to get you ready, of course, for that game in Green Bay right here on 95.7 The Game. That starts tomorrow with the pregame show with Joe Spadoni at 5 a.m. into the morning roast with Ponte and Shasky, which starts at 6. Cannot wait to hear what those guys have to say. All right. For Mark and Sterling, I'm Kyle Madsen. This has been Overtime here on 95.7 The Game.
Hey, it's Willard and Dibs for Safeway. Enjoy these amazing deals for members. And as always, earn 4 times reward points on hundreds of exclusive offers with your Safeway app. First thing, free Signature Farms turkey with a minimum purchase of $150.